I will say this, that wherever you're going, and I mean anywhere around Indianapolis, more than likely it is going to be a slow-moving slog. So we greet each other at a really good moment. You can hang for about 3 hours because, sincerely, that may end up being your commute this evening. And you can hang right here with us because I have a lot for you. Live at Victory Field, this is night number 1 of the boys baseball state championships. Indiana Christian and Covenant Christian get going, I think, today around 5:30. They are watering the field right now as I speak. In fact, we're on the club level. If you guys are watching via the lounge at YouTube Live, we're on the club level right now, and that's where we're going to be broadcasting from, I think, until a little bit after 6. We'll have a little extra time later on tonight, but I mentioned Indiana Christian and Covenant Christian at 5:30. The nightcap tonight will feature Silver Creek and multi-champion and Durand this evening. And then back at you tomorrow afternoon and tomorrow evening. You've got a good one with Lafayette Central Catholic and Ball Reeve. And the first one and the 4A nightcap tomorrow night features Cinegrove and Penn. In fact, Penn is going after, because a week ago in Lafayette, their girls won the softball state crown. They're going after the baseball state crown against Cinegrove coming up later on. I checked that, coming up tomorrow evening at 8 o'clock. And we'll talk about that at length throughout the course of the afternoon. Of course, normally this is a slow time of year, with the exception of the end of the NBA season. And then all of a sudden, as we now work inside a week to go until the NBA draft, you start hearing about nuggets of information. And I will tell you this. This information, most of the time, is put out there with a reason. And it's put out there with a reason for those in the NBA, those executives that, in fact, they want their message out there. You know, they want to see what they can do with their particular message. They want something to get out there. Maybe it's not altogether true, because there's a lot of sandbagging going on. I mean, we talk about this all the time in terms of what happens during the NFL draft. You know, especially this time, right before, a week before the NFL draft, it is absolutely crazy with a lot of stuff. And as I say all the time, we end up talking about it all, and then about 90% or so of it ends up coming out or turning out to be accurate. So we'll see. But the latest we'll get into with Evan Sidery. He's going to join us, I think, pretty close to the top of the show here. The latest is from Brian Windhorst. And I don't know if you guys have read this. I don't know how much it's been talked about. But evidently, according to Brian Windhorst of ESPN.com and ESPN covering the NBA, that the Pacers want to try to wiggle free from number 7 and want to go after an already established wing and feel that they have the ammunition to do so. Now, again, I'll play it from the angle in which I have described. I didn't think, to me, I thought that they were going to go ahead and factor in at number 7, but at the same time, maybe do something like what was reported earlier today. But if they're looking to unload number 7 in a way in which, I don't know, you move back in round number 1, you utilize some of those other selections you have coming up in the draft next week, and then go after, and again, it was mentioned because they had serious interest in OG Anunoby of the Raptors. Remember this before the trade deadline. They didn't say that. They just said they had interest and in-depth conversations with some, and basically it was the NBA world, including us here, that suggested it was about Anunoby. And remember, we have talked about how the Raptors are a team out there right now looking to rebuild. They've got a new coach. They've moved on from Nick Nurse. For goodness sake, Pascal Siakam, arguably their best player, certainly their top scorer, has been mentioned with a possibility of maybe being added to Portland if Damian Lillard stays, if they want to try to win one for Lillard out there and go with what they have. I mean, again, we got a myriad of all these particular rumors that are out there, but the interest in Anunoby has been clear, and has been clear certainly for a while. So that is something we will follow. You have seen some DeAndre Hunter rumors that have been floating around as well. But again, that latest from Brian Windhorst, and we'll talk to Evan Sidery about that. And then all the availability that we're hearing about right now, too. We'll talk to Evan about that coming up in just a little bit regarding whether or not he believes that is a good thing, whether or not the Pacers trading out at number 7 may end up going a little bit further back in round number 1, or if they just, end up trading out in general to go for a more established player. And that is the type of path I had hoped they would take. Now, others would disagree with me vehemently. Others suggest that you need to go with what the plan was at the offseason of a year ago. A lot of people describe that as blowing the team up, resetting the team, rebooting the team, whatever. And then obviously you go through a season where you hit some roots of excitability with this team, even with pressing that reset button as they did. But for me, I don't mind at all if they were able to take that chance. I wouldn't mind at all if they went for an established wing to add to this particular group to see what they have. And again, this all could be a bunch of BS because this time of year, 90% of it is BS. But it would fall in line with a number of things. And one is how this team, this group right now, wants to win. This group right now wants to see where they are in the hierarchy of the Eastern Conference and believe in themselves if they're able to add players. In this case, if Windhorst is accurate, going with an already established type of wing player that truly this team needs. There's no doubt about that. And we've gone over the garden variety of needs for this team. Regardless of the wing, you want to look for somebody that can play a little bit of defense, but also the onus of being able to play defense is on the current team. And that's what I think, in question more than anything else, are the guys on that team, besides the usual suspects that are known as defensive players, can the guys raise the bar defensively within themselves? Because it's one thing to go after somebody that has a defensive reputation or a defensive prowess, but they also need it with guys that are going to grow and guys that are going to be the future of this team. But certainly defense is a part of that, and the other aspect is a part of that is rebounding. Rebounding seemingly for a while, with the obviously Miles upped his rebounding average this year, but prior to Miles is all about Sabonis. So another rebounder is certainly a need for this team. So we'll talk about that. We got a lot more going on. Ja Morant news, 25 games to open up the season in 23 and 24 for the gun-related situations. That was his punishment from the NBA, which was reported a little bit earlier today. We got that. I mentioned the baseball here at Victory Field. You got some NFL news we'll dive into coming up a little bit later on, and some Major League Baseball as well. The U.S. Open at the L.A. Country Club is ongoing right now. You had Mexico and Team USA last night in soccer. We'll get to that coming up in a little bit later on, too. We got a loaded show, by the way. Hashtag AskPat. Hashtag AskPat with Pat Sullivan going to join us here. It is a Father's Day weekend, so we are going to go with the Yeti prize package. It is a Yeti prize package. Hashtag AskPat for the questions via Twitter with Pat Sullivan, who joins us coming up at the bottom of the hour. So we have Pat Sullivan coming up. We have Mike Wells coming up in the 4 o'clock hour. Jeremy Chinn of the Carolina Panthers, the former Fisher standout, is going to join us a little bit later on. Bobby Marks, who is the general managing office NBA-wise guru for ESPN. He's the front office expert who's going to talk about what will work, what could very well work for the Pacers. Bobby joins us coming up in the 5 o'clock hour. Paul Neidig, the commissioner of the IHSAA, is going to be here as well, and a whole lot more. Meantime, via the Andy Moore Automotive Group hotline from Basketball News, he's going to help sort it out, kind of set the stage for us on this, informationally speaking, NBA-wise, interesting afternoon. Evan Sidery joins us. Good afternoon, Evan. How you doing?
Doing great, John. How about yourself?
Well, it was made more interesting, I think, a little bit earlier this afternoon with Brian Windhorst dropping that nugget as far as the Pacers trying to wiggle free from number 7. I set this up, Evan, and I'll let you play off of it, as about 90% of all these rumors we hear prior to any draft, whether we're talking about the NBA or the NFL, turns out to be just a waste of breath, nothing but hot air. So where does this particular rumor fall in how Brian Windhorst talked about it and how you look at the availability of wings out there in which the Pacers would like to go ahead and get somebody that's already produced at the NBA level in which the Pacers may be hard targeting?
Yeah, just to set the stage real quick for you, for those that haven't known, like Brian Windhorst said earlier today, they're looking for a high-level wing player. And when you think about who fits the criteria of a high-level wing player, I come back to one I mentioned often on the show with you, John, and one I know the Pacers have had heavy interest in. I had a trade deadline also last year, and that's OG Anunoby. I think number 7 overall just for OG Anunoby straight up would be too much to pay. But let's say, hypothetically speaking, you can get OG plus the 13th pick in the draft, and then you say let's trade the 7th and the 26th and the 29th pick, for example. Trade your late first-round picks, trade 7. You still get a lottery pick at 13, and you get a starting caliber, high-level wing talent, in my opinion, in OG Anunoby. And I'm trying to think of other wings that could maybe fit that criteria, but I doubt Brandon Ingram, for example, New Orleans makes sense for the 7th pick. I think he's definitely going to stay in New Orleans unless they get the number 2 overall pick or something along those lines. So we really try to think of the criteria that Windhorst is mentioning. And when Windhorst puts stuff out, I very much take it seriously. And I think, honestly, I keep coming back to one name, and that's OG Anunoby. And I think there's actually a good package to get around here for both sides, for Indiana and Toronto, if they want to move back. The question is, for Indiana, how far are you willing to move back? Is 13, for example, too far if you still like a guy in that range?
So Evan Sidery of Basketball News joins us via the Andy Moore Automotive Group hotline. I want to get back to something you just mentioned too, in saying that for Anunoby for the number 7 is too steep. So you believe, as I had stated as well, that there's an opportunity for the Pacers here to trade off 7, get Anunoby, and trade these other assets they have, certainly later on in the draft, and then also obtain number 13, so you could get at the end of the NBA draft lottery and also acquire OG Anunoby. That is something that you think, at least if it is reportedly on the table, something could be done.
Yeah, I think so. I think that's something like that makes sense for both sides, especially if the Pacers feel like a player in that 13 range will fall to them. 2 guys that came in for private workouts, one was a group workout, was Leonard Miller of G League Ignite, who was Scoot Henderson's teammate. He's been projected in that late lottery, mid-first round range. He fits the 4 spot, too. He makes a lot of sense if they do want to trade back from 7 to 13. He's in a tier below, I would say, a Jarris Walker and a Taylor Hendricks, but he certainly plays the same position, has great athleticism and great defensive potential, too. And then one player, if you're hypothetically speaking, let's say, John, I know you really value Buddy Hield. I know the Pacers value Buddy Hield for his shooting, too, but let's say if it's required in that deal, you trade 7 and those late first-round picks plus Buddy Hield to Toronto for OG Anunoby plus the 13th pick. They just brought in Grady Dick yesterday from Kansas, and I know he didn't really make sense in the team with Buddy Hield here, but if he's there at 13, for example, you kind of can plug and play Grady Dick to be your new Buddy Hield kind of player, and you add OG Anunoby on top of that. So those are kind of 2 guys I'd look out for if they're going to trade back and do something like that.
It's Evan Sidery joins us. There's some similarities too, and I know not a lot of Pacer fans want to double back to that, knowing what you know right now regarding Kawhi Leonard, but might this be a situation where you find out maybe coming up next Thursday night or something the Pacers are drafting for the Raptors at number 7 overall? Is that kind of a scenario that you could foresee going down here if, again, any of these rumors might be true?
I think that's certainly a possibility, and with the Raptors hiring Darko Narjakovic, who's the new head coach. He was the assistant with Memphis, assistant before in Phoenix. He's known for player development. So I think that kind of signals to me they're probably going to rebuild here. And if Fred VanVleet leaves in free agency, I think OG Anunoby can probably bring back the best they want to if they want to reset a little bit. I know Dallas makes some sense for him at the 10th overall pick. Potentially that can make some sense for both sides. Sacramento's been registered as having an interest, same with Memphis. So I think it'd be more than just Indiana vying for OG Anunoby. And that's why I think the 7th overall pick could be what's needed to make it happen, because Dallas sounds like they're very interested in OG Anunoby and might be willing to go up that 10 pick in the draft. So if they want to beat out different teams' offers for OG Anunoby, which it seems like the Raptors are more than willing to listen to, I think it's going to have to be something around that 7th overall pick. That's a really risky move, though, just because OG Anunoby is a great fit here. We know how great of a shooter he is and a great defender he'd be next to Tyrese Halliburton and Benedict Mathurin. But he's on a one-year deal. You have to convince him to stay long-term. If for some reason he just says, you know what, I think I could go somewhere else next year, that could be looking like a disaster later on. So I think the only way I'd accept this sort of deal around OG Anunoby is to know ahead of time, hey, OG's willing to sign a long-term extension. He's willing to do it this summer to make it happen. So if they were to do something like that and trade the pick for a veteran like OG Anunoby, who does check all the boxes for what they're looking for, I'd be thinking that they know he's probably going to be here long-term if they do that trade.
Well, there's no way in the world you do it unless you do know, right? Unless you have kind of a wink and nod type of deal moving forward where you know. I mean, there's no way in the world. It's not like, the Pacers aren't in a position to make, what I believe is a major move. I think what it should be is just a significant step forward, but not a major move. I mean, if you roll the dice like that, then you believe you're going for, everything or bust right here. And that's certainly not the situation the Pacers are close to.
No, and I think it might be because Kevin Pritchard did mention this at his end of the trade at my press conference was they were getting aggressive. They were offering a lot of their draft capital in certain trades, and I believe Zach Lowe mentioned around the deadline back in February that OG Anunoby was their target for all those first-round picks they offered. So if they were to, let's say, revisit that now, do you think the 7th overall pick, do you believe a Jarris Walker or a Taylor Hendricks is worth passing on for OG Anunoby? Because it seems like a guarantee at this point, unless something crazy happens on draft night, one of those 2 fours will be there at number 7 overall. So it's really just a question internally from Rick Carlisle and Kevin Pritchard and everyone else. Is the Jarris Walker or Taylor Hendricks worth it, or should we drop back, get OG Anunoby? And at that point, like you mentioned, John, you'd have OG Anunoby, Tyrese Halliburton, Benedict Mathurin probably takes a big step next year as well, and Miles Turner. That's a legitimate starting 4 right there. And if you can keep around a piece like a Buddy Hield for your bench, or if you can keep around some of these young guys that develop more in this draft class, I think they're in a very good spot here to make a big jump next year. And that'd be kind of signifying to me if they make a move like this for OG Anunoby, that they're eyeing 45, 50-plus wins next year.
It's Evan Sidery of Basketball News talking up some of these rumors we're getting now under a week to go before the NBA draft, and this one involving the Pacers. Evan's with us via the Andy Moore Automotive Group hotline. So, I mean, what do you think about this overall? I mean, even beyond the risk, which I wouldn't have to think they were going to take much risk in this. I think more of the risk is that if the 7th overall selection turns into Kawhi Leonard and we have to put up with that for like 12 years, and that particular conversation, knowing what you know after they traded for George Hill, at the moment it made all the sense in the world, and now you look back on it, even though that they didn't want Kawhi Leonard and had no interest, you're always going to be tagged with that. So is this risk versus reward, you think, something that the Pacers should ultimately be doing here, or should you stick to more of what a lot of people describe it, Evan, as being sticking to the plan?
Yeah, it's a really, really tough question because I think a lot of it comes down to internally how they view Tyrese Halliburton and Benedict Mathurin, more so Tyrese Halliburton, where we saw it last year. We've seen flashes throughout his career so far in Indiana that he is a superstar level point guard. If he believes to take another step forward next year, be a top 25 type player in the NBA next year, this team's ready to go. I think that development curve for this team's probably been accelerated because of the greatness of Tyrese Halliburton that he's shown this year, taking that all-star leap already in his career, being a 20-10 player on 40% three-point, first player in NBA history to ever accomplish that, which I think says a lot about the offensive upside of Tyrese Halliburton, too. And if you throw in an OG Anunoby into the mix here, like I mentioned, that just signifies to me they think they're a top 5, top 6 team in the Eastern Conference next year, and it's a bet on Tyrese Halliburton. But like you mentioned, Jarris Walker, for example, has the exact same dimensions as OG Anunoby, 6'7", 7'2" wingspan, developing offensive game. He could be an OG Anunoby type of player 3 or 4 years from now. The question is, are you willing to wait 3 or 4 years for some of these guys? And I think that's the big question now. We're kind of internally debating it. Is this Pacers ready to go? And if they do a move like that, they certainly think so. And I do think OG Anunoby is a fantastic fit. I just think it's more so, would you rather roll the dice on a younger guy and then pay, let's say, $25+ million for OG Anunoby over the next 4 or 5 years on a new contract?
Well, I mean, what that would tell us, if again true, if they decided to make that jump, it tells us that they bought into what a lot of us maybe thought was going down in December. They buy into that winning, that consistency at that moment, and they buy into this team being well in front of what they had thought going into last year. Right? That's the way you have to view it.
Yeah, certainly so. And I think the the front office has mentioned this multiple times on the record, that they always go back to that December stretch where they kind of went downhill a little bit when Tyrese Halliburton went out of the lineup. They won one game in a game stretch and really kind of ended their hopes for any sort of play-in or postseason hopes there. And they still were competitive when Tyrese Halliburton returned to the lineup there. If you take that stretch out, this team is around a 6 or 7 seed already without adding in another big piece like an OG Anunoby, for example. So if they think one more piece like that and maybe a couple moves on the margins in free agency, because the Pacers are going to have a lot of cap space still. If they were to trade off a Buddy Hield, for example, and a deal for OG Anunoby, they'll still have $30+ million in cap space in free agency. So they could go out and make a couple win-now moves, too, on top of getting a guy like OG Anunoby. That would signify to me that they truly do believe they're ready to go. And I would not be surprised by that, because if they believe Benedict Mathurin can make a big jump as well in his second year, he averaged 20 points per game. In the 35 games, he got 30-plus minutes per game last year. So you have two 20-plus point game scorers that are super young in Tyrese Halliburton and Benedict Mathurin. You add in an elite defensive wing in OG Anunoby, for example, and you have Miles Turner on top of that. I mean, if you look around the Eastern Conference, John, that's actually legitimately, I would say, a very good, well-balanced floor to go up against a lot of the top teams in the East.
It's Evan Sidery of Basketball News with us, talking up some possibilities. Again, we are now under a week shy for the NBA draft coming up next Thursday night. He's with us via the Andy Moore Automotive Group hotline. What other nuggets, rumors-wise, are floating around out there that you've heard and thought about and think are interesting, maybe more so than any other?
Yeah, I mean, Bradley Beal, it seems like now the Washington Wizards are going to fully embrace that rebuild. I'd be very surprised that Kyle Kuzma is back in Washington. He's going to be a free agent. Kristaps Porzingis could be traded in an opt-in and trade scenario this summer. But Bradley Beal, as Shams Charania mentioned a couple days ago, they are openly shopping Bradley Beal. Bradley Beal's cooperating with because he has a full no-trade clause. It sounds like it's down to 4 teams here. It's going to be either the Miami Heat, or the heavy favorite, the Milwaukee Bucks, and the Sacramento Kings and the New York Knicks. One of those 4 teams are all linked to Bradley Beal. I think he ends up in Miami. I think it just makes too much sense there to help there. You can trade Tyler Hero in that deal as well, and their first-round pick, number 18 overall. Something like that, I think it gets done here in the next couple of days, to be honest. It sounds like, from everything, indications the Wizards have put out there, they're ready to press the reset button and kind of let everyone go here.
Yeah, no doubt about that. What I know that you had covered for so many years, the Suns. What are the things of interest going on out west? And I guess you need to comment on Ja Morant's 25-game suspension and what that does to the Memphis Grizzlies for those first 25 coming up next season.
Yeah, with Memphis, I mean, I was honestly surprised it was only 25 games. The whole time I've kind of 5 to 40-plus games. Adam Silver to set a precedent, set an example that. But Ja Morant, he's a superstar player. He's a top 10 player. I think he can both sides of the argument for how long the suspension was. I think 25 is a fair penalty for what Ja Morant did. They'll probably get off to a slow start next year, but once Ja Morant is back in that lineup and they get that chemistry back, I think they'll be back to a top 3 team in the Western Conference. They've been a top 2 seed in the West the last 2 years. So I'm not really worried about Memphis. They have a lot of flexibility, a lot of cap space, too, so they're talking very aggressive this offseason. But then with Phoenix, I'm very intrigued by what they do with DeAndre Ayton because, like we mentioned before, John, I mean, the Pacers are so lucky that Ayton did not, or the Suns did not accept that offer sheet, or decline the offer sheet, for DeAndre Ayton, and now the Pacers are still have all this flexibility because the Suns decided to match that offer sheet, and now the Suns are in a really big predicament here with Chris Paul and with DeAndre Ayton, what exactly they're going to do with either of those guys. I ultimately think they're going to trade DeAndre Ayton on draft night for maybe some draft capital, maybe a couple of young pieces that can help out their depth. Chris Paul, I think, will probably return, but that's still up in the air as well because the way they built that team, trading all their future away for Kevin Durant, he's 36 years old next year. You have like a 2 or 3 year window here with Devin Booker and with Kevin Durant to make things work. And if you don't get out of all of this, that could be a disastrous move for Phoenix. So they're probably scrambling behind the scenes there to try to make this roster work because it's going to be a crunch there.
So, Evan Sidery, one final thing, too, getting back to the Pacers. There was a rumor floating around yesterday regarding DeAndre Hunter in Atlanta. Any legs to that in your estimation?
I think so. I certainly think OG Anunoby and DeAndre Hunter are actually in a similar tier of player. I would certainly say OG Anunoby is a more well-rounded player. I'd say DeAndre Hunter is more of a project type, would be more of a role player. They can give you about 14 to 15, 16 points per game. Court as well. He would certainly fit like the 4th best player or 5th best player on the team down the road. But I think, honestly, I would lean towards Anunoby, but I would not be surprised if DeAndre Hunter, for example, does make sense because Atlanta has a roster crunch, too. They have 4 guys making over $20 million per year next year. Trae Young's making almost $45 million per year next year. So they're going to be in a spot where they have to avoid the second apron and the luxury tax. So I would not be surprised if John Collins, Clint Capella, DeAndre Hunter, one of those guys gets traded. And just like OG Anunoby for Toronto, I think DeAndre Hunter probably gets the best value in return. And like Jake Fisher mentioned yesterday in a story on Yahoo, it was around Chris Duarte and picks. I think something like that does make sense for Indiana. If you were to get DeAndre Hunter, keep that 7th pick in the draft, maybe get a Jarris Walker or Taylor Hendricks, but then you also get DeAndre Hunter on top of that. Maybe that is the better case scenario for this team where you can still keep the 7th overall pick, get DeAndre Hunter, take a flyer down on his contract. If he works out, it's great. If not, you're not really really that off, for example, if you were to get DeAndre Hunter, because he's a better overall fit for this roster now than clearly Chris Duarte. So I think either way, they're in a good spot. I actually like Hunter and OG Anunoby's fits a lot here. So I would definitely keep an eye on DeAndre Hunter, too, as an option.
It's Evan Sidery of Basketball News. Evan, I appreciate you hopping on here really quick, and I'm sure we're going to utilize you next week because I bet the rumors are going to be coming fast and furiously around here. Have a great weekend. We'll see what happens, and we'll talk next week.
Absolutely, John. Appreciate it.
Evan Sidery of Basketball News right there. Yeah, the story regarding the Pacers, according to Brian Windhorst, wanting to wiggle free of the number 7 overall and what that could mean, what wing player that they would be targeting with that. And obviously all fingers pointing to OG Anunoby. We're live at Victory Field today. The 56th annual Baseball State Finals get underway. 2 games today, 2 games tomorrow. You can get on YouTube Live inside the lounge, and instead of my incredibly handsome, chiseled features, you get to see the field and the work that they're doing. It is a great backdrop. Probably the best you've ever seen involving any of our shows if you watch via YouTube Live. But the one thing you may notice on the screen, look into right field, and I can never get past this particular legendary hit. But it is still incredible to me to try to understand that once upon a time when Adam Dunn, before he went to the majors, played here, Adam Dunn hit a home run out onto West Street. Remember Adam Dunn of the Reds? Home run that landed on West Street. And if you're watching via YouTube Live or you just know Victory Field in general and the dimensions here, that is a tremendous launch right there, to say the least. First thing I thought of when I sat down here at club level for Victory Field is that particular home run shot. All right, quick break and we shall return. Hashtag AskPat on the other side. Somebody's going to win a Father's Day gift of Yeti. For us reading your question, get your questions in. Landscaping, barbecuing, smoking incredible meats. Pat Sullivan will talk coleslaw, picnics, outdoor barbecues, whatever you do outside this time of year. If you got a question, gardening, hashtag AskPat. James going to pick a winner, and that winner is going to win some fantastic Yeti merchandise from Sullivan Hardware and Garden. Pat Sullivan on the other side. Jeremy Chinn, the former Fisher standout, currently plays defense in that secondary of the Carolina Panthers. He joins us in the 4 o'clock hour. Mike Wells still to come. The front office expert of ESPN.com for NBA, Bobby Marks in the 5 o'clock hour. That and a whole lot more. We're live from Victory Field. It is the State Baseball Finals. 2 games today, 2 games tomorrow. We're here for you, and the coverage is here for you as well. Inside the lounge via YouTube Live, the stream, the app, HD Radio, and 93.5 and 107.5 The Fan.
Hi, it's Bob from Royal Spa. Did you know you can experience the ultimate rejuvenation
Hey, welcome back to Victory Field. This is our location on a Friday, which is glorious, by the way. Round number 2 of the U.S. Open from the L.A. Country Club going on right now. Wyndham Clark atop that leaderboard. He is at 8 under par. He is through 15 on the day, 2 under. Ricky Fowler and Xander Schauffele tied for the top spot right now at 8 under par. Both Fowler and Schauffele have yet to tee off. Both have in the neighborhood of 432 and 454 tee times. Again, round 2 of the U.S. Open going on, and we shall keep you updated. We also have 2 games today. Ileana Christian and Covenant Christian, game 1 coming at you about 5:30. And then game 2, Silver Creek, the matchup with Andrean that seemingly wins every year. That would be the 2 games tonight in the Baseball State Finals. Tomorrow will feature Bar Reeve and a matchup with Lafayette Central Catholic, and the nightcap 4A, which should be fantastic. It is Penn and Center Grove. If you missed AJ Zapp on the show yesterday, because it's a common Father's Day thread, once upon a time, he was here trying to get it done in the state finals. Didn't. His son Evan gets the chance to make up for that coming up tomorrow, and what was a really nice Father's Day story on the show yesterday with a podcast at 1075thefan.com. Also, Father's Day in mind here. Hashtag AskPat. We have a Yeti prize package we are giving away just for Father's Day, and Pat Sullivan joins us. There's no way in the world with how green and lush we see down there at Victory Field, you're going to find any weeds or anything. You don't have any issues with any of this, do you?
No, I do not. The turf looks absolutely beautiful, and the reason, a lot of times when we go out and I make a little fun of, homeowners and stuff, but you never, ever, ever want to do that to a greenskeeper because you'd break them into tears.
Will they start crying out here?
Oh, yeah. I mean, they work so hard on this thing. I mean, it is absolutely beautiful.
I just like the way they water. It takes them like 5 and 6 dudes to water because you got to hold the hose.
Yeah, everybody's got to hold the hose.
Yeah,
it's crazy, but it's all part of baseball.
Are the hose holders? Does it go in terms of rank?
Seniority.
Is that what it is?
Seniority.
Like the lowest, been there the least amount of time?
Yeah.
So does that give you the middle of the hose or the end of the hose? How does that work?
You just work your way up to the nozzle.
Yeah.
That's what you're doing. You're trying to get to the nozzle.
Understand.
Because you want to grab hold of the head of the nozzle.
All right, Father's Day weekend. Sullivan Hardware and Garden's going to be hopping. Going to be packed. What are we talking about?
We are talking about Slawfest, and if you're not bringing Dad to Slawfest tomorrow, tickets are already exceeded.
What?
Last year's.
Where do you find all these
crazy
people?
And you know what? I'm sure that you were begging the IHSAA to get over here because you know that I could not bring slaw into the ballpark. You can't bring food in, right?
No, I brought a bunch of stuff in here.
I'm just making it up, John.
I know you could have. So I would never. I'm not eating slaw. I've never had a bite of slaw in my life.
Yeah.
Hey, Scotty J, you ever had slaw?
Yeah, he
loves
it. He loves it. Look at him shaking his head.
Shake his head. Just like me. We're brothers right here.
Yeah, and that's why
anti-slaw brothers.
And that's why you guys are stuck in dead-end jobs.
Well done. It's well done right there. All right, so besides Slawfest, which is sold out?
No, it's not sold out.
Not sold
but
out.
It's the ticket sales are ahead
robust.
of last year.
They're robust.
And being on Father's Day, we are going to buy Dad the first drink.
Oh, really?
With a ticket. You bring Dad.
You got to get him in there coax him in with drinks. Seriously. Nobody wants slaw.
Great music. They do want slaw, John.
Here's your alcohol, but you got to eat the slaw.
Slaw enthusiasts from all over the state, possibly the world, will be in Indianapolis tomorrow for Slawfest. And I will tell you that's a little unusual, and this just shows the personality of slaw people. I noticed we're selling a lot of single tickets.
Oh yeah. Single dudes eat slaw.
What I'm saying is it's a big pickup place.
Yeah, I'm sure it is. Yeah.
Oh, man.
Get in here for Slaw Fest.
Dude, over by Bobby Flay's Slaw, it is a big pickup joint.
Hey, by the way, I believe it was last week, right? You brought in the brisket?
Yeah.
Oh, my goodness. That was awesome. That was so well.
Oh, was it good?
That was great.
That's what I had for lunch today.
Yeah, it was great. And I know you guys do that at Sully's.
Yeah, that's done on the brisket's done on a Traeger, and all of our chicken, which I was ordering today. We were out of chicken. The Big Green Egg.
Yeah.
And we are working on the brisket smoke-off for sometime in July. I've got a few dates, and we're trying to work with your schedule, with your people, to get you guys to come out and for a great cause.
I am for it. That is Pat Sullivan. Hashtag AskPat for a Yeti prize package with your questions beginning with Corbin, Pat. Is it too late to aerate and dethatch my lawn? Should I wait until fall?
You should wait until fall, and normally a healthy lawn that is used core aerification each year or every other year should never need to be thatched. Only time you'd thatch a lawn would be a lawn that had been pretty much neglected, and then you'd use the dethatcher. But core aerification in the fall, plant your seed in the fall. That's really the best time of year. Doesn't mean you can't do it other times. It's just that's the best.
Hashtag AskPat from Jennifer. What's the best way to keep rabbits out of our garden? And have you heard of ducks laying eggs in flower pots? My dogs have found a few.
No, that's interesting, but ducks can pretty much do what they want. First of all, let's handle the bunnies. And, man, I tell you what, I don't know that we've ever sold more bunny repellent.
Really?
There is a bumper crop of bunnies. So the best thing to do is to use, depending on the situation, if you're trying to do a perimeter treatment, there is a granular product called Critter Ritter. And if it's specific plants, there's actually a liquid version of that. Does a pretty good job. As far as the duck goes.
Yeah, you don't know anything about the ducks laying eggs in flower pots?
No.
They get to do what they want.
Yeah.
They're pretty fortunate. Like, everybody holds them in high esteem. And then, the Canadian geese, nobody even puts on the brakes anymore, do
That's
they?
Canada geese. You don't want the English people after you.
No. Oh, Canada geese?
Yeah.
It's not Canadian geese?
No.
Really?
Yeah. I think
Since when?
Since the English people started after me.
Canada geese.
1994, when I went on the air, they started correcting my English.
The ducks just do what they want.
Yeah, they do. And, I think that just shows that Jennifer has some fine flower pots the ducks want to take dump an egg in there.
From Block by Block, hashtag AskPat, I've tried everything except dynamite, nuclear weapons, or yet to be heard advice to rid ourselves of misnamed, quote, Tree of Heaven. Please help. Tree of Heaven.
Tree of Heaven.
What that is.
It is a very invasive plant, and the only way you're going to get rid of it is, it's brush killer, and using brush killer in either full strength on a trunk after it's cut, or spraying it. But those are some tough ones.
It's from Mike right here, hashtag AskPat. How do I tell if it's moss or mold, and then what's the best way to get rid of it?
You know what? Moss, moss and lichens and mold kind of all follow, I think, a little bit in the same family. None of them are the ones that a lot of times people think moss is killing my grass or moss. No, moss is just in shaded areas, and the moss grows there because it's an opportunity for a vacant spot, and it pulls up. So if you want to get rid of the moss, there's nothing wrong with moss. It is not, and when you see that on the north side of the tree, that is just lichens, the same thing. It's not hurting the tree. There is a spray that Scott's makes that will take care of and get rid of it, but it's not really necessary unless it's too slippery.
Hashtag AskPat, do you think Zion Williamson is an option?
Who?
I'll answer that. No, he is not. Although you could have factored that in and planting the seed.
I would put brush killer
thing
on
a little bit earlier.
Yep.
A little planting the seed, which evidently has transpired.
Ooh.
All right, let's see here. Oh, look at James Adams is going at people right now, too, with the hashtag AskPat. The Yeti prize package is always really popular. Hey, speaking of popular, how popular besides Slawfest is Sullivan Hardware and Garden on a Father's Day weekend?
You know what? Really busy. I could really see the grill department was actually hopping today with people coming in, getting their pops a gift. Whether it's there's all kinds of cool things that I don't know what it is about grill. I mean, there's the pizza ovens are real hot right now. So we're selling a lot of pizza ovens, a lot of grills, but really a lot of accessories, a lot of sauces, picking up Dad a basket of local sauces, GT South.
Can you make your own pizza oven? if you wanted to?
I guess you could.
Could you get some concrete and put some bricks together?
Yeah, you'd have to know what you're doing to make sure it would draw properly and it would the smoke.
Like what would you have to know? Yeah, I just couldn't go out there and stack some bricks on something and
you have to
build a fire underneath.
No,
that's not good enough.
No, bricklayers. Give a little credit to bricklayers.
What do they know that I don't?
They know how to make a fire draw so that the smoke pulls up and doesn't come out the face.
I make a hole in the top of it.
Yeah, but what if the hole is coming out where you put the pizza in? What if it's not drawing and the smoke is firing out of your face?
Well, if you put a hole on top, it's going to go up.
No, it's not
necessarily.
It's not
going to go out to the side.
That is not true. Depending on how big your hole is.
I'm going to maybe construct a pizza oven in my backyard. To prove you wrong?
Could I just find out where you live and bring you like a little rock box pizza oven?
Why not?
Okay, we can do that.
Why not? Well, I'm still waiting on Scion's got to bring out some stuff. I got to get the big green egg going. Scion's supposed to come out sometime. I've got a cracked plate, cracked in half plate.
You should go right to my
my cover is shredded too because we get some weather.
You can't trust a salesperson.
Come on, Scion, where have you been? Here's the other thing I had. Hashtag AskPat from me. Why is it not cool to water plants in the sun? Or is that BS?
It's a little bit BS.
That's what I thought, because I did it anyway. You know who told me that? My mom. I went, no.
They talk about...
Because I have plants now.
Yeah, they talk... Really?
I have plants and flowers and trees and crap.
You've hit that age.
No, you know what? No, the Sundown people came in and
that's
it
right.
looks awesome.
Yeah.
It looks awesome. And now I feel because they were so good at what they did, then I'm out there watering, and my mom said, well, you don't water in the sun.
No, they talk about evaporation. Like if you water during the sun, but seriously, how much evaporation are you really going to have? Secondly, they say don't water at night. Okay. Don't water at night because it may cause fungus and mold. Well, you know what? How many times you wake up in the morning and there's dew all over your shoes?
Right.
Well, that's moisture as well. Is it causing fungus? Maybe it is, but you know what? We start watering at Keystone at 3 in the morning.
Do you really?
Yeah. When the sprinklers go off.
See, and my mom tried to tell me, and she got flowers and gardens.
But I always say, that's what your mom says.
She has raccoons.
You know, Mom. Yeah, I know she does. She's how many people say Grandma says put seed down on the last snow. First of all, I don't know how Grandma knows when the last snow is, but if that's what Grandma says, that's what you do. Even though you're probably get a little more seed rot than just waiting until March when the temperature warms up. If Mom or Grandma says it, you do it.
Hashtag AskPat, is a Traeger good for a casual/weekend griller?
Absolutely. Matter of fact, I would say that, you know what, the guys from Traeger say, you know what the best accessory for a big green egg is a Traeger. Because sometimes if you don't want to take the time to fire up the egg, you just turn on the Traeger. Now, I will tell you that big green egg is going to last, ultimately it's going to last longer than the Traeger. But the Traeger, convenience-wise, people love it, and you really need both, quite honestly.
Is a hot dog better grilled or steamed?
Grilled.
Steam's pretty good, though, too, right? No?
I don't like steamed dogs.
Yeah, okay. What's the best hot dog to grill? I mean, if it says
hot dog.
If it says Angus on it, do you go for that one?
Yes, all
because
beef.
they're like $6 a pack now, I think.
Yeah. Do they make? Let me ask you this: is it Wagyu or the meat?
Wagyu. Oh yeah, that's what is.
Is it Wagyu or Waga?
Like
Wagyu,
I've got a couple.
Is there a hot dog that is a Wagyu hot dog?
I'm sure there's going to be here pretty soon, right?
Yeah.
Just like there was Angus turned into an Angus hot dog.
Yeah.
Those things Wagyu? Huh.
Wagyu is what it is.
That's a good
It'll
question.
probably be $50 a hot dog.
I've got a cup. What is the filet mignon? I have a couple of fillets I'm going to make tonight, right?
Nice.
Thank you, Matthew and Maine, for sending that with some great seafood.
Oh, nice.
I'm going to make them tonight. What is the filet mignon of hot dogs, in your opinion? Get a name?
No. I just always look for a 100% all-beef hot dog. A choice dog.
I go smoked sausage every time.
Do you?
I like turkey smoked sausage, too.
Sometimes my wife picks up some sausage over at the Fresh Market that make me blush a little bit.
Oh, really now?
Yeah. Some good-sized dogs, some sausages over there. Sometimes I look, it's like, and I unwrap them, I look at my wife, and I go, really? This is what I need today.
This is what happens right here?
Yeah.
All right, you guys are open, and you guys are on the air tomorrow. Talk about it.
Yes, we are on from 9 until 1. Mm-hmm. We will be at 71st and Keystone, site of Slawfest. This is the only coleslaw festival in the country. The only thing that's even close to this is coleslaw wrestling during Bike Week in Daytona. That is the truth.
Sounds fun right there.
And you know what? Trust me. If you come to Slawfest, even if you say, I don't like coleslaw, I will make a believer. I mean, the entrees that we serve tomorrow on the grills, the Big Green Egg, the Traeger, I can make you into a slaw enthusiast.
Yeah, if you put meat all around it and stuff and then get everybody drunk, of course.
One by one, we will save this country with coleslaw.
So Pat Sullivan of Sullivan Hardware and Garden, a Yeti prize package with hashtag AskPat is coming to somebody. My brother, have a great
John,
Father's Day. Man, it's great to see you.
Enjoy
want to
the ballpark.
If you want to hang out for a while, hang out for a while.
I got to go
right
make
here.
slaw.
Got to go make slaw. Pat Sullivan, Sullivan Hardware and Garden. If you're watching via YouTube Live, you can see it. It is Victory Field. 4 state title games beginning at 5:30 today. We've got you covered not only here, but also on the Fan. Still to come, Bobby Marks of ESPN, the front office expert, Jeremy Chinn of the Carolina Panthers, and a lot more. 93.5 and 107.5 The Fan.
Fan.
Hey, welcome back to Victory Field. You got the first of four coming up at 5:30 today. State Baseball Finals going on at Victory Field. Indiana Christian and Covenant Christian. In fact, Scotty J just gave me a nugget of information right here that all four champions from a year ago are back to challenge to go back-to-back in all four classes. Lafayette Central Catholic, they get Bar Reeve tomorrow afternoon. They won it a year ago in Class A. In 2A, Indiana Christian, they're back to defend their 2022 crown. They'll do that to kick things off against Covenant Christian this afternoon at 5:30. And Duran in 3A, back to defend their title later on tonight against Silver Creek. And then you got Penn. Penn's 4A champion a year ago. Penn and Center Grove battle. They will bring it to you tomorrow night at 8 o'clock. We got your coverage right here on The Fan again tonight and tomorrow as well. But all four champions of a year ago, they are back to defend. We're live at Victory Field today. Something cool I'm going to do tomorrow morning I want to tell you about because this is going to be an absolute thrill for me. I'll tell you about that on the other side. The latest Pacers rumors floating around less than a week away from the NBA draft. I think John Herrick's going to join us. He's going to be on the play-by-play of some of these games coming up this weekend down here as well. Jeremy Chinn of the Carolina Panthers at 4:30. Bobby Marks of ESPN, their front office expert. What about these rumors makes sense and the positioning of the Pacers going into this year's NBA draft? Bobby Marks joins us coming up in the 5 o'clock hour. Hour 2, straight ahead, live from Victory Field. It's 93.5, 107.5 The Fan. State Baseball Finals underway officially today at 5:30. Indiana Christian, by the way, here to defend their title. Indiana Christian's uniforms are pretty badass right there. They got a little green, actually a lot of green, and they got white belts out there. I dig the white belts. That is nice. Indiana Christian and Covenant Christian today at 5:30, and Drayan and Silver Creek, the nightcap tonight at 8 o'clock. Indiana Christian was the champion in 2A a year ago, and Drayan the champion in 3A a year ago. Tomorrow afternoon at 4:30, Lafayette Central Catholic, which won it a year ago in Class A. Bar Reeve, Montgomery, Indiana, shout out. Shout out to the Gastoff down in Montgomery, Indiana. 29-3, Bar Reeve and Lafayette Central Catholic at 4:30. And then the trend of defending champions being back here. 4A, Penn won it a year ago. 26-8. They take on Center Grove at 29-3. That is at 8 o'clock coming up tomorrow night. John Herrick's going to join us a little bit later on. We'll talk about that. He's going to be on the call of some of these games. I mentioned Jeremy Chinn of the Carolina Panthers. He's back in town. He's got a camp coming up in Fishers. Of course, he's a native of Fishers. He's going to join us at the bottom of the hour to talk about that and to talk about a new path for the Carolina Panthers at quarterback. Jeremy Chinn, bottom of the hour, and Bobby Marks of ESPN, their front office expert regarding some of those NBA rumors as we close in on the NBA draft. And as Brian Windhorst has reported, that the Pacers would like to shake loose of the number 7 overall, and maybe OG Anunoby is a target. We'll double back to that in a second. Get a legend in front of me right now, the longtime voice of the Indians, which, by the way, on the road right now. Howard Kellman is here with us at Victory Field. How many years has it been?
This is my 47th season, and I love it as much as I ever have.
Absolutely incredible. 47.
Yes, and by the way, I heard your interview with Bob Kravitz the other day. It was outstanding. Both of you were terrific.
Well, he's a longtime friend of mine, and you hate to see that happen, but the floor is always open for him here. There's no doubt about that, and hopefully he finds a seat someplace else. You also mentioned this during the break, Howard. I brought up, when I sat down and I look out to right field, I think about the legend of Adam Dunn hitting a home run that bounced onto West Street. You called that game.
I heard you talking about that on the way in as I was driving in. That was in the 2001 AAA All-Star game.
That's okay.
And he hit 2 that night, and he almost hit a 3rd. But that home run was such that it was so towering, I had the opportunity while doing the play-by-play to say, it is soaring. It is soaring. It was majestic. Absolutely incredible.
Is that the longest home run you've ever seen here?
I think so, yes.
Yeah. What would that have been the longest home run that you had witnessed going back to Busch Stadium?
We had one at Busch Stadium. It was 395 to dead center. There was a Mr. Dan's right beyond the center field wall.
Yes.
Roger Freed one day hit a ball to dead center that hit the Mr. Dan's out there. So,
Mr. Dan's.
And by the way,
oh man,
they never kept track of that until Mickey Mantle started hitting home runs. The tape measure home run, they didn't really care about distance at all, but
really?
Mantle hit a ball. It was in 1953, batting right-handed in Washington, off Chuck Stobbs, and they said it went 565 feet. The Yankee traveling secretary, Red Patterson, measured it, and from that point on, they have talked about distance in home runs.
That's incredible, and Howard Kellman joins us. You're an absolute baseball encyclopedia. Run back.
Thank you.
Going back 47 years, and maybe even prior to that, because certainly you were a baseball fan before you started calling the games. What are some of the best moments that you've ever either witnessed, called, whatever?
I think the most exciting moment in the history of the franchise, and you were a teenager, so you may remember this, Game 7 of the 1986 American Association Championship Series. The Indians and Denver Zephyrs, 3 games apiece, bottom of the 9th, the 7th game. Rob Dibble pitching for Denver, which was Cincinnati, by the way. We were Montreal.
Right.
And Billy Moore, with a 2-2 count, lines a base hit to left field on a fastball. They should have thrown him a slider, but a fastball to left. The tying and winning runs scored. We labeled it was magic. You don't get any more dramatic than that. And then we won 4 straight championships. That was the first of 4 straight championships. So that was incredible. I'll tell you the one as a kid. And there's a footnote to it. Game 3 of the 1964 World Series. I'm 12 years old. It's Saturday morning. I'm in the bleachers at Yankee Stadium. Game 3, the Yankees and Cardinals, a game apiece. Mickey Mantle's leading off the bottom of the 9th against Barney Schultz, who was just brought in out of the bullpen. And we were saying, wouldn't it be something if he hit one? Mantle, first pitch to him, game winner off the facade, third deck, gives the Yankees a 2-1 lead. It broke Babe Ruth's record for most World Series homers, his 16th. And it was the greatest thrill I ever had. Fast forward, 13 years later, I'm broadcasting the Indianapolis Indians. We're in Wichita. I'm having lunch with our manager, Roy Matika, at the hotel restaurant. Who walks into that restaurant but Barney Schultz? And Barney comes over, and Roy says, Howard, this is Barney Schultz. He used to pitch for the Cardinals. I said, I'm well aware of that. He said, really? I said, Barney, in all the years I've watched baseball, you gave me the single greatest thrill I ever had. He got so excited he couldn't contain himself. So when was it? I said, Game 3 of the 64 series, your first pitch to Mantle. He said, you no good, blankety blank, and we broke up laughing.
Oh, it's Howard Kellman, the legend, is here. The 47-year voice of the Indianapolis Indians on the road. Of course, he's got the call that coming up later on this evening as well. I was thinking about, because you mentioned, when Denver was the affiliate of the Reds back in 1986, and I had some family members and a group that used to go and sit on the first base side of Busch Stadium and would heckle every game. They were just like a group that were known to heckle. And one of the strongest responses they ever got was from Rob Dibble. They got Rob Dibble once so flustered that he was so at the top of the zone, it was like Nuke Lelouch stuff here. It was like Ricky Karcher the other night for the Reds. I mean, he could not control it. He was so visibly upset. Give me some of those great memories of Busch Stadium, because I think about that. I think about one time I was there, and Dan Billardello, the catcher, got mad at what was being said about him. He went up into the stands in a game. And then one time, Deion Sanders, who was playing a AAA game here at Busch Stadium, got kind of angry and went after some folks, too. Are these memories that you have?
I remember Deion Sanders, I think it was 1989 with Columbus. He was playing. Bucky Dent was the manager.
Yes.
So Neon Primetime Sanders. Then he later played for the Reds, of course. And
I believe his quote was, they were talking to my female, or something like that was his quote back then in 1989. But that is true. I mean, he got angered. It's interesting to go back to Busch Stadium. It's almost like at times it was no holds barred. It really was then.
We were there from 1931 through, let's say, July 3rd of 96. And there were a lot of great memories, especially the decade of the 80s, because we won 6 championships. Larry Bird and the Celtics won 3. Magic Johnson and the Lakers won 5. We won 6 championships in the 1980s, so it was absolutely incredible, and 4 in a row. The 82 team was the first championship team since 1963, so it was so much fun, and there was an attitude among those championship teams. Look, these guys are trying to get to the big leagues. There's no doubt about it. However, they didn't talk about that. They just said, we're going to play this game the right way, and the big leagues will take care of themselves. And they did, and these guys got to the big leagues. Like Hall of Famers, Larry Walker and Randy Johnson were on those teams.
Yeah.
So we had a lot of great players, too.
Well, you went when the Indians were the AAA affiliate of the Expos. It was a who's who, from Galarraga to Walker to Marquise Grissom.
Yes.
I think Tim Raines was prior to that. I think Wallach was prior to that. But, I mean, you had all these Delano DeShields was another one. You mentioned Randy Johnson. I'm trying to think. Was Pedro Martinez here?
No, they got him in a trade, actually, the Expos did, for Delano DeShields.
Yeah, okay. But what was the more amazing? Was it that with the Expos, with the talent that was in and out? That with the Reds that you remember, certainly with the Pirates right now? What was some of the more amazing levels of talent you've witnessed here?
Well, the Reds, when I first got here, were the parent team in the mid-'70s. And I got a story about the exhibition game. When the Reds, and you probably remember the Reds coming in here for the annual exhibition exhibition game, and Pete Rose, Johnny Bench, Joe Morgan. It was so special.
And they played.
Yeah,
they played.
Pete took 2 or 3 plate appearances. The other regulars had 1 plate appearance, but Pete would go head first. Anyway, my first year, Vern Rapp is our manager, and I'm having lunch with him the first weekend of the season, and he said, the only time you're going to see Max Schumacher, who is president and GM, really nervous is if it's raining the day of the Reds game, because that game meant the difference between, in the 70s, being $5,000 or $10,000 in the black or $100,000 in the red. If the game got rained out, we would only get $5,000 from the Reds, and the game would not be replayed. So we had to play that game. Sure enough, June 20th, 1974, it's an overcast day with a forecast of rain. Well, and everybody's a little nervous. It poured 5 blocks from Busch Stadium, but it did not rain, just a little mist. The Indians won the game. Johnny Bench hit a home run. Max Schumacher said afterward, that made up for all the bad luck I've ever had in my life. And the other footnote, with Bench hitting the homer, I was in the Indians clubhouse after the game, and Sonny Roberto was our catcher. Sonny said to me, what did you think of Johnny Bench hitting the home run? I said, I thought it was great. The fans come to see it. Everybody likes it. He said, I think the same thing. I think everybody was happy except Pat Zachary, who was the pitcher.
Yeah.
And what Pat doesn't know is that I told Johnny a fastball was coming.
Nice.
I let him know.
That's nice. It's Howard Kellman here. You saw almost all, not all, but almost all the Big Red Machine guys here.
Yes.
Right?
We had, in the 75 and 76 world champions, we had about 13 of them. We missed Bench by 1 year.
And you missed Morgan because Morgan didn't come up through.
It was a trade.
Yeah.
Pete Rose never played AAA baseball. He went from A ball to the big leagues.
Wow.
Yeah, what happened was in the spring of 1963, nobody knew who Pete was, and they were playing an exhibition game against the Yankees, and he drew a walk. And you remember Pete would run to first base when he drew a walk? Well, he runs to first base, and everybody's, what's this? Whitey Ford, the Yankees pitcher, yells out of the dugout, where'd you guys get that Charlie Hustle? And that's how the nickname Charlie Hustle was
pinned. That was there right there?
Yes.
Charlie Hustle started here?
Well, no.
No, I'm sorry.
It was a spring training game. And that's how the nickname, Whitey Ford pinned the nickname Charlie Hustle on me. Where'd you get that Charlie Hustle? And Pete was Rookie of the Year that year, and again, he came out of A-ball. Bench was a big prospect, but Bench played AAA ball in Buffalo in 1967, the year before Indianapolis and Cincinnati started working together.
It's Howard Kellman who is with us, and we get the Baseball State Finals games start here today with Ileana Christian and Coventry Christian coming up at 5:30. Of course, Howard, 47 years as the voice of the Indianapolis Indians. You know, oftentimes we'll get excited for baseball when there's a rehab assignment from somebody from the big leagues on a different team. What's the most excited you've ever seen a crowd with a player with the opposition from the big leagues doing a rehab assignment here?
That's an easy question because one stands out above all the others. It was Nomar Garciaparra with the Red Sox. I believe it was 2001. It was around there. And he rehabbed, and he was playing. Some guys go through the motions when they rehab, JMV, but he was playing, and he was hitting, and I think we sold out Victory Field like 3 or 4 nights, and he got better and better each of the 4 games in the series, so there was no question that that's the one that stands out. Among most of them don't stand out, because sometimes guys are going through the motions, they're just trying to get ready, but he gave it everything he had.
It's amazing when you think about that, too, because oftentimes those are some of the biggest crowds of the season when you get that one guy that's on a rehab stint. You know, for example, like Votto, I think, has been playing with the bats down there, too, and that gives folks, I'm sure, some big crowds to go see him.
He was rehabbing earlier in the year when the Indians played in Louisville, and he was really struggling to the point where they stopped the rehab assignment. Now they've restarted it again.
I'm a big Reds fan, as you know, and we see a lot of that young talent. Any of that young talent that's up in the bigs right now, did you call games with Louisville?
Well, unfortunately, when we played Louisville earlier this year, Ellie De La Cruz was hurt.
Yeah.
So I didn't get to see him. But we've seen some other guys, and, they have some talent. It's terrific to see what they've accomplished. It's really good.
The team that you're calling, what's it look like so far? How's the season been for you guys?
The Indians are 6 games below 500. We reached 500 a couple of weeks ago. Took 5 of 6 from Toledo. Then an Omaha team came in here, and won 5 in a row, and we couldn't believe it. And the Indians had a better record than Omaha did, 5 or 6 games better. The thing about baseball is it's always has been and always will be so unpredictable, more unpredictable than any of the other sports. Like, go a few years ago, 2019, the visiting team won all 7 games in the World Series. Between that was Washington and Houston.
Yeah.
So anyhow, because of that starting pitcher, you can have a bad ball club, but if you get a well-pitched game, or on the other hand, you can have a great team with position players, but if you don't get good pitching, like the World Cup team, World Baseball Classic team, if you don't get the pitching, so because of that, the game's so unpredictable.
We see what the Pirates are doing right now in the NL Central. Is that something, obviously calling these games, is that something you could see coming?
No.
That success, or is it a surprise?
Nor the Reds, too. I mean, both those teams lost 100 games last year.
The biggest surprise is the Cardinals that are awful so far this year in the cellar.
They're about 15 games below 500.
Yeah.
So that division, now the Cubs just swept the Pirates. So the Pirates are a game above. The Reds are a game below, I believe. It's incredible. And the Brewers are at 500. The Brewers are in a state of disbelief after Oakland swept them in Milwaukee.
So Howard Kellman, who is with us, how much you got left in the tank? I hesitate to ask, but I'm curious.
Well, can I tell you that Bob Uecker is 89 and still broadcasting the Brewers games?
He does.
I feel great. See, I was very fortunate, unlike Bob Kravitz and Bob Lovell, when I had a heart attack, there was no damage done to my heart. And it's over 7 years ago, so I exercise between an hour and a half every day. I feel as good as I ever have. No lost energy, so I hope to keep going.
No, you certainly haven't lost an ounce of energy. It is still right there at the tip top. You enjoy calling these games as much as you ever did?
Absolutely. You never know. One day it'll be 2-1. The next day it'll be 10-9. In fact, the Indians lost 10-8 last night.
When you look at overall in your career, you gave us some great stories, and certainly some stories from some of the more famous, more enjoyable decades of baseball we've had around here. What stands out to you overall about your 47 years of doing this job?
Well, people ask about the biggest thrill, and the biggest thrill is doing the job every single day. That's the biggest thrill. I don't get nervous per se during a game, except when there's a no-hitter going. And I've called 2 no-hitters, 2 9-inning no-hitters by one pitcher. The first one was my first year, May 24th, 1974 in Omaha. That was 6 weeks into my first season. I'm going to have a lot of these. Tom McCarroll called one, but I've only called one other one since, and that was in May 15th, a Sunday afternoon in 2005 when Ian Snell of the Indianapolis Indians threw a no-hitter against a really good Norfolk club who walked one batter, would have had a perfect game. There's something so special about a no-hitter, a perfect game. You get jittery like you feel like you're playing. It's incredible.
Is Randy Johnson the best pitcher you've ever seen here or at Busch Stadium in this case?
And he's one of the greatest pitchers of all time.
Yeah.
Now, when he first got to the big leagues, he was not a star. He struggled a bit. He was okay. He had bouts of wildness. And Nolan Ryan said to him, look, don't walk people like I did, and you're landing in your delivery, you're landing on the heel of your foot. Land on the ball of your foot, that will help you. He did. His control got better, and he just took off.
That's incredible to think about, too, because you're right. I mean, it wasn't like he was this huge in the spotlight type of star. I mean, he was a guy that just kind of had to set his place and go at it and let his ability show, which he did. And a lot of it you saw at Busch Stadium here.
Yes, we certainly did. He had a good year. He started off slowly in 1988, but had a good year and started the 89 season with the big club. Montreal struggled, was optioned to Indianapolis. 3 weeks into his tenure with us that year, we were in Rochester, Memorial Day weekend. A Saturday afternoon, he got traded. Montreal traded him to Seattle. And
for Mark Langston.
And they also... The Expos also gave up Gene Harris and Brian Holman, who were 2 fine young pitchers, but they had arm injuries down there.
And Brian Holman was supposed to be better. I think they viewed him at the time better than they did Randy Johnson.
He had better control at that time.
Yeah, so, it was amazing. The Mark Langston thing, that was maybe the last time the Expos really did anything that outrageous, outlandish at the end of the year. And and dug down into their farm system and traded it away, because after that it was basically they were the ones that were doing the trading away of the stars.
What happened was the owner was Charles Bronfman. He was going to sell the team in a few years, and he said, I want to win now, so do anything you possibly can, he said to his front office, to win now, and that's why they made that trade.
Who has the ownership of the Expos logo? Do you know?
No, I hadn't thought of that.
I don't know. So I'm the only one that probably would think about that. It just occurred to me as one of the greatest logos, I think, in baseball history.
And they had the best record in 1994, but then the strike occurred, and that was the end of baseball in Montreal. It was never the same after that.
It was never the same. But I mean, you're right. You called so many incredible players that came up here in Indianapolis that went on to Montreal to be incredible.
Yes, we did.
I'm sure I'm forgetting about some right now. But
Eric Davis, Cincinnati, too.
Yeah.
In Indianapolis here in 1983.
He was here in 83?
Yes.
How long was Eric Davis here?
The last 3 weeks of the season, and he tore it up. He was incredible.
Oh, man. Howard Kellman. I could do this for days, buddy. I could. Hey, congratulations on the 47 years, and keep them coming.
Thank you so much, JMV. I listen to you all the time. Keep up the great work.
Thank you. That's Howard Kellman right there, everybody. 47 years calling Indianapolis Indians games, and he continues doing it at such a high level. Thanks again, Howard.
Thank you very much.
Quick break, and we shall return live from Victory Field, where Ileana Christian and Covenant Christian are preparing to take, I'm sure, a little infield coming up here. Victory Field, and that first pitch is set for 5:30. Other side, you know this name, don't you? Jeremy Chinn, secondary, Carolina Panthers. He's got a football camp coming up in his hometown of Fishers later on this month. And Jeremy's going to join us coming up on the other side. Live from Victory Field, it is the IHSAA State Baseball Championships beginning today at 5:30. We'll look for you here. 93.5 and 107.5 The Fan. To join us in a second. Let me tell you just how much I thoroughly enjoyed that conversation with Howard Kellman and how much I could have continued. The only flub I had is asking him about the Montreal Expos logo. I'm sorry. That is one of the greatest logos of all time right there. One of the greatest. Greg Rakestraw is walking over here right now. Jeremy Chinn's going to join us in just a second, but we'll let Greg mount up as you're getting ready to make the call.
Do not let me delay Jeremy Chinn.
Well, no, we'll let you know when he's here.
Whatever amount of tackles he's had for the Panthers are that many more than I've had in my NFL career.
Man, this is awesome right here. I love doing the show here. I just went about 15 minutes with baseball history with Howard Kellman. That did not suck.
You went right down the ribbon with HK. Huh?
Well, yeah, and I went right after the old school Reds and the Big Red Machine, and the Expos that he covered in Busch Stadium.
George Foster, Ken Griffey Sr., Felipe Alou, Randy Johnson, LeGrand Shaw, Andres Galarraga.
Oh, man. Well, I mean, they had Grissom, DeShields, Larry Walker, all those dudes.
And you can literally see all those faces as you walk around the outfield when they show the historically significant Indianapolis Indians in Major League Baseball.
Give me a little bit of input about what we're going to hear with you, for example.
Well, you're going to see a lot of green, as you can tell from warming up. Covenant Christian on the left, on the right being Ileana Christian. Ileana Christian, this is their third year eligible in the IHSAA tournament, and they're playing for a second state championship. Covenant Christian was 7-14 at one point, but they play in the same league as Roncalli, Chittard, Brebeuf, and Garin Catholic. They played in the city championship game here. Record-wise, you don't think this game's going to be great, but trust me, I think this is going to be a pretty good one as I see people streaming down to the field for two reasons. A, gates are open, and Jeremy Chinn is standing by on the Andy Moore Automotive Group hotline.
Yeah, thank you. You stay right there, too.
No.
We'll get back to you in just a second. Jeremy Chinn does join us down. Jeremy, how you doing?
What's up? I'm doing good. How you doing?
We're down at Victory Field. Were you a baseball player at all back in the day in high school?
Not at all.
Nah, well, I mean, you made a hell of a choice, man. Don't get me wrong. Your choice was pure. Hey, how are things going right now? And obviously, in the direction that you're going, there's going to be a lot of new and freshness under center this coming year, huh?
Yeah, things have been great. We actually just wrapped up mini camp yesterday. We had a really good spring.
Can you tell that there's a difference between, obviously, we're talking about, Bryce Young being in there. Obviously, we're talking about, Frank Reich being a first-year head coach with you now. Can you tell that, is there a difference from what you have been a part of minicamp-wise in the past?
Yeah, most definitely. The energy is great. This group came in to really work this off-season, so it's really good to see. Really excited how we are together come fall camp. But, I mean, so far everything's been great.
What do you gather? And I know you haven't seen a great deal. You've seen just a little bit. But what do you gather from Bryce Young, from what you've seen him throwing the football so far?
He's poised. You can tell he's definitely been in those big games, been in those big situations. Doesn't seem rattled by much of anything. And he's super confident. Everybody can tell his confidence, the belief that he has in himself, but he's also very humble at the same time.
Did it kind of feel like a rebirth of sorts for this football team, you included, with this going into this year? Does it feel good with this new and freshness with the coach and with the quarterback here moving forward for you?
Yeah, 100%.
And that's part.
Starting with the coach.
Go ahead. Yeah, what are some of the things, besides the enthusiasm you brought up just a little bit earlier, some of the other things that you've noticed just in the early stages about things that are changing, evolving, if you will, Jeremy, with the football team in Carolina?
Yeah, a big part of the coaching staff, just the years of experience that our staff has, the knowledge, that's been able to go around and, if I have any questions about absolutely anything about the game, there's so many people, so many resources around the building I can go to get answers.
Yeah, sometimes that transition can be difficult, but it just seems like to me, with what you see, and again, I'm on the outside looking in Carolina, it looks like that with the excitement that you got, and again, the new and the fresh feeling that makes up for a lot of things to where maybe team-wise you have struggled so far since you've been in the NFL. Seems like that's probably putting you in a spot to be excited, maybe the most that you've been excited being in this Panther uniform so far, right?
Yeah, I mean, there's a lot to look forward to. We have a great group of guys. We have a great coaching staff as a whole. So there's definitely a lot of excitement right now. But obviously, being so early, there's still a whole lot of work to be put in.
All right, so you mentioned Jeremy Chinn, by the way, the Carolina Panthers, via the Andy Moore Automotive Group hotline. You mentioned that minicamp just wrapped up. So when is it that you're going to make it back to Fishers here? Is it at the end of the month? Is it here relatively soon? When are you going to get back?
Yeah, I'll be back in Fishers next week. So I'll be hosting the camp on Saturday, actually on Friday at Fishers High School, Friday night. So looking forward to that. Super excited about that. What
does this camp entail? What are you hoping to get from this camp? And obviously somebody that's been through so much collegiately and now, as a valued member defensively for an NFL team there in Carolina, what do you want to teach to the kids that are going to be a part of your camp?
I want to instill part of my journey, really, and show them that, accomplishing your goals and reaching it to the highest level of football, and really not just football, but your profession or whatever is possible. And also the fact that come back home, so to spread that knowledge is something means a lot to me. So on top of also
he is Jeremy Chinn is with us. Part of your journey is one that obviously it's not giving up, and it's also, if you play at a high level, you're going to be found. And believe me, it's not like Southern Illinois. I mean, Carbondale's on every map. But, it is not one of these Power Fives, Jeremy, that we talk about all the time. But your story is great. One, because it's a local one here coming out of Fishers High School. But the other is it goes to show you, if you play at a high level, they're going to find you, which exactly they did.
Yeah, 100%. 100%.
So Jeremy Chinn is with us. A little bit of a rundown once again for that camp that you're going to be a part of, that you're putting on in Fishers, Indiana, coming up this month.
Yeah, it'll be Friday evening at Fishers High School. Like I said, I want to spread my journey, spread my story, and really just impact a group of kids and impact a group of people from where I'm from. So show them that it's possible. And also on Saturday, I'm hosting another camp, an IPS camp at Douglas Park. Kind of the same opportunity.
Again, one of the better stories that we've heard around here in a long time. When you were growing up, Jeremy, who did you idolize as a football player? Did you grow up a Colts fan in Fishers?
I was a Sanders fan. I liked a lot of players that were on the Ravens too. I was a big Ed Reed fan, big Ray Lewis fan. I was a running back when I was younger, so I was for Daniel.
It's Jeremy Chinn right there, and obviously you're going to be a big Ed Reed fan, playing the position that you certainly play. And again, he's got camps coming up in Fishers. He's got one coming up at Douglas Park as well. Giving back to the community is what he does. The former Fisher High School standout, and of course the Jeremy Chinn Foundation. Before I let you go, I did want you to hit on a couple of things. As long as your phone hangs in here with us, Jeremy, regarding your foundation, the Jeremy Chinn Foundation, and what that entails and how much work has been put into that so far in your young career as well.
Yeah, so the Jeremy Chinn Foundation, I'm really, really connected with the Charlotte community. One of the big things I noticed when I first got to Charlotte, when I was drafted by Carolina, was the homelessness, the amount of homelessness, the homelessness community. And really just finding any way that I could reach out and reach back to help in any way possible. So the Jeremy Chinn Foundation really helps, those dealing with homelessness and really alleviating their life and making their life a lot better from children that deal with the issues to adults. So there's a lot of things that I'm doing. One thing I'm doing in July is school supply give out, backpack handouts, and things like that, just so kids have those things to go to school and make their life a little bit easier. whether it be going to school or, people going to work, providing coats and things like that.
It's awesome, man. Well, keep up the great work. You know that we follow you a great deal here in Indy, and certainly are proud of what you've accomplished. And again, it's just a great story of, you come out of Fishers, you go to Southern Illinois, you play at a high level. And in closing, I've always wanted to know, because I bring this up all the time with guys I have on the show, when you were at Southern Illinois and you thought maybe people playing your position not as good as you, in your opinion, is that a chip on the shoulder that helped you get where you are today? Did that continue to motivate you? Maybe your feeling of you getting slighted with others, and then obviously now, being a starter and a huge contributor with the Carolina Panthers in that secondary. Was that a huge motivator for you throughout?
Yeah, I mean, it's crazy. I really feel like it's kind of been the story of my life. Coming from even when I was at Fishers and being under-recruited and not really feeling like I had really not even the spotlight, the recognition, and, everything as far as that, and that I really wanted to have. So there's always going to be an edge. It's always, to get better and to improve myself and whatever. I know, going to a small school, you'll most likely get overlooked just from where you're at. But like you said in the beginning of this, the talent, it always ends up getting found and it always ends up being appreciated. So I'm grateful for the opportunity that I had, really, even just going to Southern Illinois out of high school and to becoming a second-round pick out of college. Really just taking advantage of the opportunities I have, regardless if I felt like it was late or whether it felt like it was, maybe, like I said, later, not on time, or underappreciated in a way.
Jeremy, in closing here too, you mentioned being under-recruited, and I would have to guess there's a fine line between, being pissed, right, about something and not having that play a role in your motivation, and then, obviously you're angry about it, but then you're thinking about it all the time, and, you're going to lift extra in a weight session. You're going to do extra in the film room. That is probably, again, you want to be recruited, by Power Fives. You want to be recruited by Big Ten schools. But at the same time, that's probably helped really outline your path to where you are right now at the NFL level, more so than it would anybody. How much do you look back on that path and you feel like that I'm glad I went down it because this helped me get to where I am in the NFL today?
Yeah, I mean, it's everything. It's all part of my journey, all part of my story. And looking back, I wouldn't change anything about it. I'm super grateful for it, and I know it's helped create the person that I am, and it's all part of the story, all part of the process.
Job well done, and continue getting it done. Here's the camp again, Friday the 23rd in Fishers, Saturday the 24th at Douglas Park. The Douglas Park camp is free to the public, and the Fishers camp is $10 donation, with all the money being split between the Jeremy Chinn Foundation and, of course, his alma mater, Fishers High School, in the athletic department. Again, the 23rd in Fishers and the 24th at Douglas Park, and you can see him on the field coming up in late July once again in training camp with the Carolina Panthers from Fishers High School. It is Jeremy Chinn with us via the Andy Moore Automotive Group hotline. Again, fantastic job so far. Keep on keeping on, and when you get back again soon, we'll have you back on, Jeremy. Thank you very much. All
right, thank you. And those spots are still open, so we can fill those up at Fishers High School Friday night on the 23rd. Yeah, I hope to see everybody there. It's going to be a great time. I'm super excited.
You got it. We'll send people your way. Jeremy, thanks again.
All right, thank you.
Jeremy Chinn, again, and you can go to Fishers High School on the 23rd and just be a part of that. And then Douglas Park coming up on the 24th. Jeremy Chinn has a fantastic story out of Fishers, Southern Illinois, and then Carolina. And that secondary with the Panthers. New head coach Frank Reich, new quarterback is Bryce Young. That is Jeremy Chinn via the Andy Moore Automotive Group hotline. John Herrick is here. I'm going to hit a quick, I tell you what, John, jump on here really quick. I'm going to hit a break and then come back. I'm trying to time this out right because you also have some responsibilities coming up in just a little bit, coming off of newsworthy responsibilities here a couple of blocks away earlier, right?
Yeah, it's been a you're talking about things that are going on in Indianapolis from a news standpoint. Then you get to come down to Victory Field and get to call two great baseball games tonight. Crowd's already starting to come in. I got to see some of them on the way in. It's going to be a great atmosphere at Victory Field. I should have two outstanding games, and the weather looks awesome.
We'll talk about that with you coming up on the other side. John Herrick's got the calls for the games this evening. Again, Indiana Christian and Covenant Christian at 5:30. You've got Silver Creek and Duran, the nightcap, coming up later on this evening at Victory Field, where we are live today. And, of course, your coverage later on this evening right here on The Fan. Bobby Marks of ESPN, their NBA front office expert, on if OG Anunoby in trading number 7 is workable. And we talked about the assets and the leverage that the Pacers have produced over this past year. How much do they have compared to what others have going into the NBA draft next Thursday? Bobby Marks set to join us coming up at the top of the 5 o'clock hour. Quick break, and we're back at Victory Field next. 93.5, 107.5 The Fan.
Diabetes, high blood pressure, anxiety meds, everyone's on them. If you're a 40-year-old male, maybe a bit porky, and you may even have type 2 diabetes, $1 million of term life insurance may only cost you about $100
Fan. If you're watching via YouTube Live right now inside the lounge, you can see the glorious and incredibly friendly confines of Victory Field right now. Indiana Christian and Covenant Christian going through some warm-up opportunities as they get going here at 5:30. The first of 4 state baseball title games, the 56th annual Baseball State Finals with the IHSAA. We got them for you right here, and we'll bring back right now John Herrick, who is doing both games coming up later on tonight. Also is the news director at 93 WIBC. So what happens when you do traffic on the fives? Traffic on the fives, and Matt Baer talks for 5 minutes about the FUBAR traffic around here.
Yeah.
Does that kind of screw up everything a little bit?
No, it doesn't. I think when, look, sometimes traffic is news. It is.
Right.
And any of you coming in or driving on I-70 today probably know that's
like any time now.
Yeah.
I will go into that on my way home after doing Saturday night, John. By that time it's early Sunday morning, and I'll go down Bluff and obviously go under I-70, and it's packed then too.
Yeah,
it doesn't matter. I can't wait. Are they ahead of schedule at all with this? Can they come out and say, "Hey, we're ahead of schedule," and it's not going to be the 21st? Yeah. I think is when they're going to reopen.
I think if they would have, they probably would have done it by now. I think we're stuck till the 21st, and then they're doing closures on the other side of 465. I mean. I tell everybody this is going to be one heck of a state when it's all built, whenever that is.
Exactly. And then by the time we get done, and then we'll have to catch up even further to others.
Yeah.
That's one thing that can, and nothing against the state of Indiana here, but the one thing that Kentucky has going, they may not have any teeth nor indoor plumbing, but they do have some pretty nice roads.
Yeah, they do. And very few orange barrels blocking everything.
Oh, man, I'm telling you. So Matt Baer, traffic on the fives lasts about 5 minutes now, especially on a Friday, the way that it goes downstairs on 93 WIBC. Of course, you're the news director. You're calling the games. Indiana Christian is a defending champion, one of 4 defending champions here, trying to bring it back home once again. What do you make of this group against Covenant Christian?
Well, I mean, a very, very experienced group, and that's one of the big stories. One of 4 teams coming back. First time that's happened in the multiple class era since 1998, and I got to call their championship game last year. They look great. I mean, and coming back again, look strong. I mean, this could be a field, John, where we have 4 returning state champions win it again. I mean, that could very easily happen between tonight and tomorrow. But I will say, people are going to look at Covenant Christian and they're going to say, well, they were 11-15 and they're a game over 500. Do they really stand a chance? Well, of course they do, because they're going to have a lot of people here that are already filing into the state.
They are,
and they're going to bring a kind of a home field advantage probably, because they're not far from here. And they are hot. They've won 5 games in a row and have just looked outstanding, and already have 7 starters back from a team that went 18-11 last year. So they've definitely relied on that leadership to get them to this point. So Indiana Christian's been solid, but they'll have a big challenge too.
All right, too. And by the way, you've got Dave Pischker, who's won 9 billion games at Andrean in game number 2 against Silver Creek.
Yeah, if he wins tonight, it'll be his 1100th career win.
I was pretty close. I said 9,000.
It feels like that, though. And Andrean's just been a juggernaut. But Silver Creek's no joke, so it should be interesting to see what happens.
It's John Herrick right there. What time are you going to get underway?
We start at 5:30. Probably go on the air a little bit before that, do a little pregame.
We join you in progress, I believe.
Yep.
Because you got to go for me, and we got to make sure Gorman has 30 minutes to yip yap with the last word, and then you're going to take over. Who's with you?
Jim Leisure.
I love Jim Leisure, man.
Yeah.
It is a good damn day when Jim Leisure's talking to you. Let me tell you that.
He's
right
very
there.
Matter of fact.
It's John Herrick doing the play-by-play for the finals tonight. News director, 93 WIBC, with traffic on the fives with Matt Baer, talking for 5 minutes about the traffic on your way home on a Friday. Thanks, John.
Thank you, JMV.
John Herrick right there. Bobby Marks on the other side. He is the front office expert for the NBA with ESPN.com. Does any of this Pacer stuff make sense? We'll see if it does to him. Bobby joins us top of the hour next.
We're the Hellsburg Wedding Band.
to begin the first of four. Get started here at 5:30. We'll get you updated on that in a second. Tomorrow, by the way, and this is going to be for a future show, I'm going to go in the morning and hang out with the legend Oscar Robertson tomorrow. So a little one-on-one Q&A with one of the greatest of all time coming up tomorrow, and I'll utilize that for a future show. I'll report back to you, but that's something that has been on my bucket list for a long time, and I cannot wait to do that coming up tomorrow. Meantime, with us now via the Andy Moore Automotive Group hotline as we get into that chatter less than a week away from the NBA draft, the front office expert for ESPN. It's our friend Bobby Marks who joins us now. Good afternoon, Bobby. How you doing?
I'm good. Thanks for having me. Appreciate it.
I know you're incredibly busy right now. I want to start right here. One of the Brian Windhorst rumors regarding the Pacers, who drafted number 7 coming up on Thursday, is that if they kind of want to wiggle loose of that pick right now and go after an already NBA established wing. We'll start just on the surface. Is that a move, do you think, if they're thinking about doing that, that is beneficial and that would be the right play for the Pacers and Kevin Pritchard moving forward?
Well, I mean, I think it's all matters of who that player is. If it's a guy that's on an expiring contract, it probably doesn't make sense. If it's a guy that's on a rookie contract or is on a contract that's got some length, that maybe makes more sense here. I think they're in a really good spot. I mean, I think where they are at, certainly at 7, I think they'll get they're not going to get the Brandon Millers and the Scoot Hendersons. We'll see who falls there. I think you can probably find a 4 if you're looking for that. So I think you've got plenty of options, especially when you're picking in the back end at 26, 29. You've got 32 and 55, I think, also. So, yeah, I mean, I like you're in that in-between period. Like if you're going to move out of the lottery or an established player, like you better hope that player is going to be here for more than just 2 years here.
Well, I think in a final year of a deal is one OG Anunoby, and he's most commonly been mentioned, and obviously it was reported the Pacers had interest in him moving up to the trade deadline back in February. All right, as somebody that's been through this before, you have to know that longer term this is going to work out for you, or that can be some dangerous territory right there.
Oh, yeah. I mean, OG's a good name, but with him, he's got a player option for next year. Although the extension rules have changed, it was a little bit more of an increase here. Is he a type of player that would, commit to a long-term extension after 6 months of the trade? I think that would make sense if you can get him, if you can get him to commit. I think you run into the danger if he doesn't, and then you go into next offseason, he's an unrestricted free agent.
So, how delicate is that situation to try to handle it? Because you want to know the outcome, but you really don't know until the thing is signed and the deal is done. How delicate can that be? For example, in this case, if that is the path that Kevin Pritchard and Chad Buchanan would like to move down.
Yeah, I mean, the benefit of it is that you have him for almost a year to basically in-house recruit one of the top free agents in the 2024 offseason. So that's the beauty of it, and the other second of it is the ability to give him more money than any other team out there when you inherit his bird rights here. So we've done it. I did it in Brooklyn. I mean, we moved. I think number 3 at the time. And wound up getting Darren Williams, and Darren was going to be a free agent, and we basically had a year to recruit him and keep him and woo him and everything like that. And I think it makes it a lot easier compared to next offseason if OG was a free agent and you have 2 hours to meet with him in free agency here. So that's that's a little bit of the high, the reward versus the risk there in that regard.
So Bobby Marks from ESPN, he is the front office expert in the NBA, joining us via the Andy Moore Automotive Group hotline. And Bobby, you alluded to the fact that the Pacers have a lot of options compared to the rest of the NBA going into the week of the NBA draft. Where might the Pacers rank, in your opinion, as far as having options compared to those around them in the NBA?
Yeah, I mean, they basically kind of check the boxes as far as what you have available, whether it be the 5 picks, which I think certainly towards that back end are going to probably be on the move somehow. I think what we're seeing now is teams parlaying the now, which is draft picks, for the future. because eventually you're going to have to pay some of your younger players, whether it be Halliburton or, maybe you make a trade. The cost eventually starts to add up here. And so I think that's, certainly one thing. I think, and then the other thing is you have your young players, and then you have the cap flexibility going into this offseason to maybe go out and get one or maybe multiple players, or maybe take back a player in a trade here. So I think they're in good position. I think the draft is, it's you gotta hit on these picks. I think that's, especially for guys that are on these low cost contracts, 4-year rookie scale contracts. Those are critical here, and they've got an opportunity, starting, with the 7th pick on Thursday night.
So Bobby Marks with us. You mentioned that there is normally a drop-off for everybody after the first 3 selections in this draft. But give me some thoughts about those that will go, from basically 4 through 10 in this case, and maybe something where you might be able to mine some gold there that will surprise at that next level. Give me some names that you like in that particular category, Bobby.
Yeah, Taylor Hendricks from UCF is a big, big wing. I think he could probably play 4 positions here, and I think he can play small ball 5. He's a good name. I don't know if Cam Whitmore from Villanova gets to 7. I think if he does, it would be a steal. Another big wing. We'll see what happens with the Thompson twins. They'll probably likely go before Indiana is picking. I think they're a little bit more of a, I would say, project. I'd say probably more of those upside pick. I think Whitmore, I think Hendricks you can play right now, put him in a game here. Anthony Black's a good name, but how does he fit with Halliburton? A big guard there. Who else? Darius Walker from Houston's a big 4, 6'8", 250. I think we could play 3-4, probably 5. Those are your kind of your sweet spots as far as kind of in that range right there.
So Bobby Marks, who's with us. The most common comparison we've done on this show is between Walker and Hendricks. And my thought is, if you drafted 7 and that's your availability, I go Walker, because what the Pacers need, defense and rebounding, I think more so than anything else. He looks like a guy that is strong and ready-made to contribute early in those 2 capacities in the NBA. How do you compare him, if indeed that is a choice to be made between he and Hendricks at number 7, Bobby?
Yeah, and I think he can. I think he fits in well with Miles too. As far as even if you put him at the 5, Miles at the 4. Yeah, I think that's the fit part here, and I think certainly with Hendricks, it's a little bit different here, kind of more of a lanky wing. But I think they have as I said, they have an opportunity that maybe either one of those players is staring at them at 7, and I think they have an opportunity to get a good player.
All right, Bobby. About this time last year, before I let you go here, the Pacers signed to an offer sheet DeAndre Ayton. And then luckily for the Pacers, about 90 minutes later, Phoenix matched, and that little conversation was over. And I asked Chad Buchanan this about a month ago. I said, you guys feel like you dodged a bullet there? Of course, he's going to say all the right things and not answer that to the question in which I asked. But I'll ask you that. Did they dodge a bullet compared to where they could be right now with Ayton, what they got out of Miles, their extension of Miles compared to what they would have had with Ayton had that thing stuck?
Yeah, I think they did. I think especially, the likelihood is that Halliburton gets probably a rookie max this year. Eventually the numbers start to add up here when you add Halliburton next year, and if you had Ayton there, it starts to get there. So I do. I think DeAndre Ayton's a good player here, but I just think paying a center $33 million and his name isn't Jokic, Embiid, certainly in those players that I just mentioned, I think it's a little bit of I think you're better off using your resources somewhere else.
All right, one final thing. I know you're going to run here, but I'm curious your thoughts. 25-game suspension for Ja Morant handed down earlier today. What are your thoughts on that? Is that survivable for a Grizzly team that's talented but oftentimes can't get out of their own way?
Yeah, they still have Tyus Jones, so that's probably one of the best backups in the league here. I think it is survivable. I think I wasn't surprised at 25 games. I saw a lot of people were thinking it was going to be more. I was like, what? No, it wasn't going to be more. I think the interesting part of it is that he's not allowed to participate in training camp or be in the facility or basically do anything associated with the team. And it'll be interesting I guess that'll probably get you to December, those 25 games, where Ja Morant is in December here and where this Grizzlies team is.
All right, I know you got to run here. We may catch up with you and see what the Pacers end up doing and kind of play off of that with you at the end of next week or something. Hey, man, thanks for always finding time for us here in Indy, because this is definitely going to be one of the more interesting off seasons I think we've seen in a long time around this Pacer team, and we love to get your breakdown and your knowledge on that, Bobby. Thank you very much. Have a great weekend.
I appreciate it. Thanks for having me on.
So Bobby Marks right there of ESPN. He had to make a run, I think, for TV right there. But he is always so good with us. He was so good with Kyle Udemark when Kyle ran the show, and he's equally as good with James. And we got to thank him for coming on what is a busy Friday for him with a lot of information that is floating around out there, one of which is what we started off the show with. And again, I'll reset to where we are today. Victory Field, the side of the 56th annual Baseball State Championship games, the first of which, as Covenant Christian just took a little bit of infield out there. Now, Indiana Christian, the defending champions in their class, they are now taking infield, and the game is set to get underway here. First pitch is at 5:30. We're going to join these games in progress coming up after the last word. So I'll give you a little thumbnail sketch. Paul Neidig, the commissioner of the IHSAA, is going to join me at 6 o'clock because we go overtime a little bit, and we'll work up to the last word. And then after the last word, we will join in progress this baseball game and then have for you as well Andrean and Silver Creek coming up after that. And then obviously tomorrow, you've got Lafayette Central Catholic. You've got Bar Reeve in that matchup in the afternoon. And the nightcap in 4A is going to be Penn and going to be Center Grove. And one of the interesting aspects of this matchup in these state final baseball games is the fact that you have 4 teams that are trying to defend. It's the first time that's happened in 4 different classes. Indiana Christian taking on Covenant Christian. Indiana Christian won a year ago. That's the Class 2A matchup at 5:30. Of course, Andrean in 3A is a staple here, as it seems. 28-6-1. They take on Silver Creek from the south in Sellersburg, Indiana. Silver Creek at 25-7. Again, that's in 3A. Lafayette Central Catholic, a winner a year ago in the Class A championship game. They get Bar Reeve. Bar Reeve outlasted Shakamak. Both are southwestern Indiana baseball staples. And Bar Reeve 29-3. That's at 4:30 tomorrow as Lafayette Central Catholic looks to defend their title. And then in 4A, got Penn. Penn won the softball state crown in Lafayette over Roncalli last week. And the baseball team goes to defend their title coming up tomorrow night at 8 o'clock as they take on, again, arguably, debatably speaking, 29-3 Center Grove. Many would suggest the best baseball team of the state of Indiana. And if you heard the story that I brought to you yesterday with A.J. Zapp, A.J. Zapp was a 1996 first-round baseball amateur draft selection by the Atlanta Braves. He fell a game short of winning it all when he was in high school, and his son Evan is a part of this Center Grove team, a significant part of it, and he goes for a little unfinished business for his dad coming up tomorrow evening. Again, a great Father's Day story we brought to you yesterday with A.J. Zapp on the show. And by the way, that podcast is at 1075thefan.com. Really interesting to say the least. But that's what's going on down here, and that's the timetable. Again, Paul Neidig, who is the commissioner of the IHSAA, is going to come at you here with me at 6 o'clock. And there's still a lot of stuff going on with the IHSAA in mind, meetings, seeing about the class system still, some adjustments with that in mind. And Paul's going to join me at 6 o'clock, and we shall talk about that. But that's where we are at Victory Field. And if you want a shot right now, that's kind of interesting because this is the first time I've utilized this and been here via YouTube Live. But I have the stream which is the YouTube live feed going on right now inside the lounge. As you can see, if you go ahead and log on and check it out, even if you don't get a part of the conversation inside the lounge via YouTube Live, you can watch Indiana Christian take infield before this game. So we got that going inside the lounge via YouTube Live, and that is going on right now. Meantime, I want to double back to what we started the show and talking about a little bit earlier. And there goes that can I had, just fell right down there. That's too bad. It was the Brian Windhorst rumor. I should say a report that he had. Rumor, report, whatever. As I mentioned, about 90% pre-draft stuff ends up being untrue. We end up talking about a lot of crap. And again, I let you know about this because that's just the way that it goes. I let you know of that with all the stuff we talk about. Remember, prior to free agency of the NFL, we bring up all these different scenarios. We consider all these different reports. And then about 90% of it, 9 out of every 10, turn out to be completely nothing but hot air. Nothing going on there. So before free agency in the NFL, we do that. We tell you about that before you get started with the NFL draft, and we do that again, prior to the NBA draft. Now, it's going to be interesting this year because this is one of the first times in a while where you're thinking maybe the Pacers would do something, and I hesitate to suggest majorly interesting, but certainly interesting. I hesitate to say eye-opening, but maybe surprising considering what has been the past. And not a great deal going on. I brought up to Bobby Marks a moment ago. We were out in the Backyard Bourbon broadcast in Fishers with Matt Schleter and company. And this was almost to the day or close to it when the Pacers signed DeAndre Ayton to an offer sheet. And that got about 90 minutes of the most compelling radio, Pacers-wise, we've had in a long time. But again, 90 minutes was all that it was because then about 90 minutes later, the Suns matched that offer. And again, as Bobby Marks just stated, that was a positive for the Pacers. That was a good thing for the Pacers because now the Suns are stuck in a situation where they want to get rid of DeAndre Ayton. And I know Frank Vogel, the new head coach, is saying all the right things about how you have to implement him and how you have to make him a part of this team and how that's going to work. But honestly, in so many circles out there, the suggestion is it'd be great to find a different seat for he and his contract, because of what they're trying to do right now with that team, with, obviously with Durant and with Booker and, what they're thinking about doing with Chris Paul. A lot of questions to be answered, but that's what we were dealing with almost to the day this time last year was that. And it gave us about 90 minutes of strong content, but this year should be different. Because this year, as Bobby had mentioned, if you missed that, podcast 1075thefan.com, I'm going to tell you this. High school coaches that hit solid fungo, they're few and far between, aren't they? And to me, they're incredibly impressive. Any high school baseball coaches, any baseball coaches at all, how talented are you with the fungo? I'm going to tell you what, the ultimate judge of the talent with the fungo, and again, this is something you could just watch via YouTube Live inside the lounge, is being able to hit that fungo pop-up to close out an infield session to your catcher. My man just was money with the pop-up behind the plate off a fungo. Hopefully a lot of you that are baseball coaches have talent with the fungo. I just saw some incredible talent with Indiana Christian and the fungo bat right there. But no, we'll get back to the NBA stuff. The rumor was earlier today that the Pacers weren't altogether thrilled with wanting to have to draft number 7. And we were just talking to Bobby Marks about, where is kind of the in-between. And most folks would suggest that you've got the first 3, and whether or not, Wembayama's the obvious, the unanimous number 1 overall. And then you got some suggesting that it's Brandon Miller, Scoot Henderson. Some say Scoot Henderson, Brandon Miller, whatever. And then after that, you've got the Thompson twins. You've got Cam Whitmore. You've got others in a similar category right there. But most notably, what we've talked about with the Pacers is what could be between Walker and Hendricks. And the interesting dynamic is that Walker would seemingly fit if it's number 7 overall because of just what his body type is and what he brings to the table. What he brings to the table beyond having to fit in offensively. Maybe not having the higher level, a higher bar set of an individual offensive player, as much as being able to bring a couple of significant needs to the Pacers immediately. And that is a better defensive player. And as Bobby Marks alluded to, somebody defensively and then somebody rebounding-wise that would help play off of the efforts of Miles Turner. So you've got Walker and you've got Hendricks. Hendricks is a guy from Central Florida that certainly many that have judged him would suggest he has a much better, much higher upside offensively, shooting the basketball than Walker might have. But it looks to be more of a work in progress, and who knows whether or not the dude can play defense, but that certainly is not a calling card of his being able to play defense. But the rumor is that the number 7 overall is being heavily shopped right now because the Pacers don't want to select there and because the Pacers would like to bring in an already established wing. And many of those rumors that have been talked about right now would be that of OG Anunoby. Now, obviously, you want some consideration because Anunoby got a player option after this year, and he could bail. So if you're going to do something like that, you would have to know that you're going to be able to keep him around longer than that. Otherwise, that's going to be a disaster. And the other consideration is if that is the wing that reportedly they're looking at, and DeAndre Hunter is another name that comes out in Atlanta that may have some Pacer interest. But if Anunoby is the target here, can you still pick up? I think Toronto, this is off the top of my head, Toronto has ownership of 13, I think, overall, which is still on the inside, very late, obviously, in the lottery, the lottery portion of the NBA draft, but still a part of it. Can you exchange the picks and then give them more picks, the ones that you have of assets down the road, and then bring in Anunoby? And then if you bring in Anunoby with that in mind, understanding that that he is going to be intent upon being around here longer than just next year. Those are the types of situations that we talked about, and honestly, that's the situation that I think is, to me, the most interesting and the best, is being able to add something that you don't have, something that you covet at such a high level. Being able to add that right now and still being able to take a chance, take a shot on drafting late in this particular NBA draft lottery. That is the absolute, that's the hope that I have right there. And we shall see if it works out that way. But that is the Brian Windhorst rumor that the Pacers would like to and have been talking to others about trying to shake loose of number 7 overall and get an already established wing player. And then all of us kind of point the finger to that established wing player being that of OG Anunoby. We talked about that with Bobby Marks a little bit earlier. Evan Sidery kind of talked to us about that to really start off the show. A large portion of those rumors that are floating around, including that of DeAndre Hunter with Atlanta, which was one that kind of popped a little bit yesterday. Now, again, who knows? 90% of these all end up being hot air. But certainly, conversationally speaking, the Pacers should be a part of this coming up before the draft and then going into the free agency portion of the NBA season, probably as talked about as I can remember in a while around here with that in mind. So we'll discuss that still to come. Come back with you. I think we have Jethro Tull tickets to give away a little bit later on. Hey, Cam, what's going on at TCU Amphitheater tonight? Do we know? What is it?
It's 3 Doors Down and Candlebox is the main.
Oh, that's over there tonight?
Yeah.
That's Candlebox's final tour, I think, right?
Yeah, something like that. And then the 3 Doors Down is like one of their original albums. It's like they're celebrating that album as this tour.
Is that Loser and Here Without You, baby?
I believe so, yeah.
3 Doors Down and Candlebox. Because I think they were running some tests a little bit earlier today, very loud tests. This is something, if you come to these games tonight, you will very easily hear Candlebox and Three Doors Down right next door at TCU Amphitheater. Easily hear that with these two championship games coming up later on tonight. All right, quick break, and I shall return. If you guys want to join, you can at 239-1070. James, I'll give you a little insight here. I am trying my hardest to go as long as I can because I want to make sure we're in break when they go to the national anthem, because I know that's coming, and there's nothing that makes me I can't talk over the national anthem, so I'm trying to get us into a break before the national anthem starts or when the national anthem is playing here. So that's why I'm stretching this a little bit longer, certainly, than usual. I'll tell you what, though, we'll take a break and come back. Maybe some calls at 239-1070 if you so desire. Paul Neidig is the commissioner of the IHSAA. He's going to join us coming up at the top of the hour, and we have had a fantastic show so far featuring Bobby Marks of ESPN, the NBA front office expert. Jeremy Chinn of the Carolina Panthers was on the show. Also talked to Greg Rakestraw. John Herrick was here. The legendary and year number 47 for Howard Kellman, who joined us a little bit earlier, the voice of the Indianapolis Indians. Evan Sidery was here. We talked about some of those basketball rumors going around too. And Pat Sullivan of Sullivan Hardware and Garden with hashtag AskPat. He was also here too. All right, quick break and we shall return. Getting ready to get underway with the little championship baseball at 5:30. Indiana Christian and Covenant Christian. That and more coming your way live from Victory Field on a Friday. It's 93.5, 107.5 The Fan.
Hey, good morning. You're heading to the airport, right?
Yep, thanks for checking. I like the car.
Hey, welcome back. Victory Field's our location in front of Indiana Christian and Covenant Christian. Let's pay honor to our country with our national anthem. That, ladies and gentlemen, our national anthem. Welcome back. Getting set for Indiana Christian and Covenant Christian, the Baseball State Finals, Game 1 of 4 here at Victory Field today. I got to thank everybody from the IHSAA for having us out here. Jason and Chris and the gang for putting us up here in the club area and what should be an absolutely outstanding evening of baseball. As I mentioned, Indiana Christian, the defending champions in Class 2A at 24-9. Covenant Christian is 16-15 overall. They are set now to get underway for baseball. The 3A game matches up Andrean at 28-6-1 versus Silver Creek at 25-7. Again, that's your 3A state title game. That is at 8 o'clock tonight. And then coming up tomorrow, more baseball out here at Victory Field. The Class A title game, that's at 4:30. Lafayette Central Catholic, they are the defending champion. In Class A, they take on Bar Reeve out of Montgomery, Indiana. And then Penn, a year ago, won it in 4A. They'll try to match that at 26-8. They'll take on 29-3 Center Grove coming up tomorrow night at 8 o'clock. But it has been a fantastic day so far. Jethro Tull tickets for you before we bail out of here. And again, a little bit of extra time for you as well, as after 6 o'clock, Paul Knighting, who is the commissioner of the IHSAA, he will join us too. Meantime, JMV, this is from a little bit earlier, as far as talking about what the Pacers may or may not do as far as that number 7 overall. It's really interesting to me. I am one that would like to see them end up doing something with a more established player. I like hearing that as a reported rumor, as some info, some rumor mill grinding that's going on out there. And if the possibility is an Anunoby, especially if you can still get barely inside, but inside nonetheless, the NBA draft lottery, I really like that. Not to mention the fact you want to make sure that you're still, in this case, able to secure Anunoby longer term and not just for a year. But that's the kind of thing that I'd talked about so far, was that particular opportunity. And again, as we talked to Evan Sidery a little bit earlier, we talked to Bobby Marks a little bit earlier about how you look at that. It may come down to this. It may come down to the fact that they believe that not only do you have to add that, but if you add that with an established player, the effectiveness of your team being ahead of schedule would seem to be the viewpoint of the Pacers. If that Brian Windhorst rumor is true. That's certainly the way that it would seem. We talked about that and more with Evan Sidery a little bit earlier. That podcast is at 1075thefan.com. And then Bobby Marks came on here at the start of the 5 o'clock hour, going over all the options, the myriad of options that certainly the Pacers have, right up there with the options of all other NBA teams. And it has been a long time since certainly you have felt that way, has it not? A long time as a Pacer fan since you've heard those types of words regarding your team. But a good thing. And less than a week away from the NBA draft, which is coming up here next Thursday. Should be absolutely outstanding. I'm telling you what, if I get one straight back here, I'm going to have to make a play on a foul ball. Because it says beware of foul balls. I'm very aware of the possibility of straight back at me in the club area foul balls. As this game is officially underway with Indiana Christian coaxing a walk against Covenant Christian. Again, underway in the 2A state title game down here at Victory Field. Got that. Ja Morant, 25-game suspension for his dual gun-related situations in the past 2.5, 3 or so months. So we've talked about that at length as well. 25 games, the effect that's going to have. I thought Bobby Marks brought up a good point as far as Memphis being able to maintain. It's a lot of games without your star. A lot of games to start the season without your star. But the Grizzlies being able to maintain with what that team looks like, what that team is made up right now, is, to me, fairly accurate in terms of the way that you look at it. But 25 games for Ja Morant, and something we have not talked about is the simple fact that Michael Jordan selling his ownership stake in the Charolette Hornets. That going down a little bit earlier today as well. So we talked about that, talked about Ja Morant, then talked about next week's going to be a good time. Next week will be a fantastic time for you, I promise, if you are a Pacer fan with some of these options and all these rumors you're going to hear. Again, they may turn out to be nothing, but there's going to be a lot of mention of them because they have a lot of options at their disposal. JMV at 1075thefan.com. is the email address. JMV, I heard you all week talking about the Reds, and the first time us Reds fans are able to embrace a team in a long time like this. 34-35, game and a half out of first. They start a weekend set in Houston. Houston is dinged up. I mean, Houston is got some injured players right now, but that's going to be a tough task, to say the least. That is an 8-10 start later on tonight for the Reds and the Astros. And that game is down in Houston for a weekend set. And I want to remind everybody of this. When we tend to get excited about the Reds are those moments when they let you down. And we've already seen that in recent weeks. We saw that with the New York Yankees in town and that letdown series. And just a couple of weeks ago when Milwaukee, then the front runner of the NL Central, came to town and saw how that series worked out. So this is still a work in progress, but Reds fans, as you know, you don't get oftentimes to be able to really embrace a team in some moments. It has been fleeting. So I have altogether been excited and certainly satisfied to talk up this team and what they have accomplished to this point, even if it goes away and goes away as quickly as this coming weekend. Now, it's not going to drain all the enthusiasm, but let's face it, then you'll go back and look, well, you swept Kansas City, but look what you did, against a good team, a consistently good team. We'll look for that coming up this weekend from our Redlegs down in Houston against the Astros. All right, U.S. Open also ongoing. I'll get you updated on that. I mentioned this too, and this is for a future show, but tomorrow I am going to go to the north side, and I'm going to have a sit-down one-on-one with Oscar Robertson. And that has been a bucket list of mine for a long time. And I got that call late last night and earlier today. I'm going to go up and do a sit-down one-on-one. I think it's going to be videoed, but at the same time, I'm going to utilize the audio for a future show. But that is something I've been wanting to do for a long time. The Hall of Famer and the legend, Oscar Robertson. And that opportunity is coming up for me tomorrow, and you can listen for that on future shows. That excites me a great deal. Coming up tomorrow. All right. Indiana Christian leaves a runner on third. Covenant Christian gets that strikeout to end the top half of the first inning. Nothing on the board for Indiana Christian, and Covenant Christian, the pride of the west side of Indy, is coming to the plate. The Class 2A final, Indiana Christian and Covenant Christian, is officially underway. We'll get you there. We'll join the coverage after the last word coming up later on this evening. Then, of course, get you the games coming up tomorrow as well, right here. Paul Neidig is the commissioner of the IHSAA. He joins me coming up at the top of the hour. And, I mentioned TCU Amphitheater that has Three Doors Down and Candlebox later on tonight. If you're coming to these games, you will hear that show, no doubt about it. It will infiltrate Victory Field without question. But I've got tickets for you for the TCU Amphitheater coming up in August with the legendary band Jethro Tull. Those tickets could be coming at you in the next 10 minutes or so as we get you to the 6 o'clock hour and what has been a busy show today from Victory Field. And, yeah, so many of you responded to the conversation with Howard Kellman. I, as well, could have gone on for a number of hours talking about some of these teams of the Indians, the affiliations with the Reds, with the Expos of the past, and all that he has been through 47 years of calling Indianapolis Indians games. Outstanding conversation. If you love baseball, and I mean you love the history of baseball, Howard Kellman a little bit earlier on a podcast at 1075thefan.com is the place for you. Also, coming up, July the 11th, not too far from where I sit right now. I could probably see it if I walked on the other side here of the press box. But back 9, it's our golf outing. I'll tell you all about that, the benefit, and why you have to have a pretty damn good excuse not to make that on a Tuesday, July the 11th. Our fan golf outing. Tell you all about that, give you a chance to win coming up on the other side. Live at Victory Field, the state baseball finals officially underway, the first of 4 here at Victory Field on this Friday afternoon as we get ready to fade into the Friday evening going into a weekend at Victory Field with 93.5 and 107.5 The Fan. right, this is going to happen. I mentioned that the TCU Amphitheater is going to be busy tonight. It's like it is busy here at Victory Field. But coming up in August, Jethro Tull, the legendary Jethro Tull, will be there. And I've got a pair of tickets for you at 239-1070. Right now, number 9 is going to go see Jethro Tull. Again, that's coming up in August at the TCU Amphitheater. Number 9 at 239-1070. You are going to be a winner, and you're going to go. Covenant Christian trying to get a little bottom of the first 2-out rally going, but that is snuffed out with a bounding ball to short. Got a couple of zeros on the board in this first inning of play. They go to the top of the second inning. Indiana Christian back up. The defending champion in Class 2A taking on Covenant Christian. Again, Covenant Christian had a couple of runners on and 2 outs to no avail. No score in this first game of the Baseball State Finals. You know what? You can kind of catch me a little bit trying to throw in a little bit of baseball play-by-play going to the break. Now, it's nothing that John Herrick nor Greg Rakestraw have to worry about, but you can kind of catch me doing a little bit of that baseball play-by-play as they go to a break right here. Hey, Mitch brings up a great point. As I mentioned Oscar Robertson. I'm going to go and visit him tomorrow morning, and do a one-on-one with the basketball legend, Hall of Famer, just a legend in general. And it's one of my bucket list things. I've never done that with Oscar Robertson. And I'm going to get the opportunity to do that coming up tomorrow. And Mitch had mentioned this. He said, you know what, not using your term sports arousal along with the big O somehow to announce that interview seems like a missed opportunity. Yeah, it's probably a little bit odd, right? Just a little bit odd. But nah, for me, that's going to be an all-timer. I mean, Oscar Robertson will probably go, who is this clown sitting across from me? But for me, that is going to be an all-timer. He has never been on the show before. And to be able to do a sit-down one-on-one tomorrow with him is, that's going to make the list of all-timers for me. Yeah, without question. Hey, by the way, too, Matt Taylor, the voice of the Colts, just texted me and said that there is no Gorman tonight. So no Gorman on the last word. It is Matt Taylor and Casey Valier on the last word coming up this evening, and that is underway. I bail out of here, I think, at about 20 after 6. Paul Neidig is the commissioner of the IHSAA. And the pride of North Posey High School in Posey County in southwestern Indiana. He's going to join me coming up here at the top of the hour. Last word with the voice of the Colts, Matt Taylor and Casey Valier at 6:30. And then we'll get you back here for the remainder of this game call. And then obviously the game that comes up after this one, and that game in 3A, you got another situation where you have another opportunity for a school to repeat. Never have we seen 4 schools with an opportunity to all repeat. Thank you, brother. Like we do coming up later on, well, tonight and tomorrow as well. Indiana Christian, as I mentioned in this game, against Covenant Christian and Andrean. Andrean seems like that they kind of just camp out here every single year in June because they're playing for a state title. They're the defending champions in 3A, and that's your 3A matchup that you can hear right here later on tonight. And that is underway at 8 o'clock for you this evening. Again, Andrean and Silver Creek, 28-6-1 Andrean, and 25-7 Silver Creek at 8 o'clock this evening. Once again, tomorrow, too, it continues here at Victory Field. You've got Lafayette Central Catholic at 24-11, Bar Reeve at 29-3 in Class A. Penn, the defending champion. Oh, by the way, Lafayette Central Catholic, the defending champions in Class A, and Penn, the defending champions in 4A. That is 26-8. Penn, and Center Grove is 29-3. Going to work coming up tomorrow evening. Yeah, it's pretty cool to sit out here. Honestly, I was telling James this a moment ago. I kind of want to sit here and just watch baseball. So, and James, can they still see what's going on out there?
in the
Via
YouTube stream.
YouTube
Yeah,
Live?
yeah, they can kind of see it.
They can actually see what's going on?
Yeah,
I guess I could just go ahead and punch up my phone right here.
They can't really. I guess they can't really see the ball, but you can see the whole field, and you can see all the players, and you can kind of make out what's happening.
So that's pretty cool right now. You can see that via YouTube Live if you're watching. What I did today is I decided not to show my incredibly chiseled and handsome features. Instead, kind of put the camera of the YouTube Live feed onto the field, and you can actually see what is going on out there right now. So that's pretty cool right there. And certainly if you're listening, you can hear the sound of the bat when it makes contact. No doubt about that. It's kind of funny. Who, by the way, won the Jethro Tull tickets? I had a bunch of people that tried to get in all week long, and the lines were packed. Were you surprised, James, that so many people wanted to get in on the Jethro Tull tickets like that?
Actually, I am. I did not expect Jethro Tull to get that many people calling in about it.
Did you really know who they were?
Oh yeah.
Before this week?
Oh yeah.
You did?
I'm a big Metallica fan, so I knew that they beat Metallica in the Grammys in the 80s.
By the way, not only Metallica, but Jane's Addiction and AC/DC
and
in
Iggy
the
Pop.
category. And Iggy Pop. That is so good. I don't know if I can ever get over that. That is so good right there. Jethro Tull. And as I mentioned a little bit earlier, too, we're right next door to the TCU Amphitheater. And I don't know when that show starts. That is Candlebox. And 3 doors down, that will be so loud that it's going to be the rest of this game and then the game after featuring Silver Creek and Andran should be outstanding with that in mind. All right, quick break and we'll return. On the other side, Paul Neidig's going to join us, the commissioner of the IHSAA. I'm going to ask him to update us on everything. And here's the other thing, too. If you ever had any complaint whatsoever, go ahead and file that regarding the IHSAA at JMV 1070 on Twitter right now, and I will ask Paul all about it. We got 20 minutes, a little extra time with Paul Neidig, the commissioner of the IHSAA, as we're live right downtown at Victory Field in what is a glorious early evening as we get into it. And Covenant Christian and Indiana Christian going at it in this 2A affair. No score as Indiana Christian bats with 2 outs and a runner on second in the top half of the second inning. We'll keep you updated. The commissioner of the IHSAA joins us coming up on the other side. Do not go anywhere. And remember, tomorrow night, the JMV takeover. Uh-oh, that's drilled to center right there. Going back. Canicorn. End of the inning. Check that. End of the top half of the second inning right there. See, I can't do that. If I'm doing play-by-play baseball, I can't make major gaffes like that and be held accountable. I would be. Tomorrow night, JMV Takeover, B105.7, 6 until midnight. Once again, a ton of your favorite decade of the 1980s and all requests, which, by the way, last Saturday night broke records. I told some people, Todd Meyer included, I told some people that I took over 158 phone calls on Saturday night. That is incredible. That is quite the number. Do it again tomorrow night. JMV Takeover, 6 until midnight. All requests Saturday night on B105.7. Paul Neidig, the commissioner of the IHSAA, going to join us next. A little bit of extra time live from Victory Field. It's 93.5 and 107.5 The Fan.
The years
from Victory Field. Indiana Christian, the defending champions in 2A. Just close out Covenant Christian in the bottom of the second inning. No score as we head to the third. Top of the third here at Victory Field. Still to come tonight, Silver Creek and the defending champion Andrean, well, they have the 59ers, I believe, right? Paul Neidig is the IHSAA commissioner who joins us now. A little extra time with the big fella right here. I mentioned this. This is absolutely fantastic. I kind of get caught up with just wanting to watch the game as opposed to talking during it. But what a great night. What a great venue. And you got a couple of 2A teams well represented here. One defending champion, first-timer, defending champions in every class being here. Pretty cool weekend.
It is. We're just we're so blessed here in Indiana. First of all, at the IHSAA, we get to play in some phenomenal facilities. Our students get to Gamebridge Fieldhouse, to Lucas Oil, to we were at Benninger Stadium in Purdue last week with softball. And here we are at Victory Field today, and there's not a finer minor league ballpark in the country than here. And so our kids get to finish their last game on an incredible facility here. So.
Do you ever judge what they do in other states, what venues they play in high school wise? And I'm not across the country, but certainly within, our vicinity, Midwest, whether, we're talking about Illinois, Ohio, Kentucky, Michigan, Wisconsin, what have you. Did you judge that? Yeah,
I had those communications. They're my counterparts. I talk to them all a lot because, we all do the same thing. There's only a few of us in the country that do this job. And, but they often ask us, how do you get into the place like Gamebridge Fieldhouse? You play indoors at Lucas Oil, and they don't get to play in those places. I'll call my friend in Illinois every year, and they're getting ready to celebrate their football state championship the same weekend we are in Champaign, Illinois, outside when it's snowing.
Right.
And our kids are showing up here and playing indoors. And, we play. There's not another state association in the country that plays in the quality facilities across the board that our kids get to.
Well, is there anybody else that has the professional sports relationships that you guys have?
No.
That seems amazing to me too.
It is. Our relationship with Pacer Sports Entertainment and the Fever and that team there, and to the Indians here, to the Colts. I mean, they truly understand high school athletics and support kids because they know these kids are going to come back and be fans someday. So it's so important to them, and they never ask for anything from us. They always want to know, what can we do to help promote high school athletics in the state of Indiana.
So Paul Neidig, the commissioner of the IHSAA, this is the end of the sports calendar campaign here this weekend. As you look back on it, how did it go?
Phenomenal year. One of these days I'm going to quit talking about COVID, but we went through COVID and things were shut down, but we continued to play in the state of Indiana, and we didn't know if fans were going to come back. And then when we got back, they did. They showed up. We had huge crowds, and this year they've even gotten larger. Our boys basketball state championship, the 3 and 4A game in the evening, we were standing room only during that transition time. Softball, we set a record last weekend. Track and field, we set a record recently. And so we've got fans that are just coming out, supporting. And I always say, I know you and I are small town guys, and when those communities get to show up and watch the team that's got their high school's name on it, or their town's name on it, that is still special in this state.
It is.
And people still come. They make a pilgrimage to Indianapolis or wherever we're playing, and they're going to watch their team. And it's still special here.
What year did you graduate at North Posey?
1981.
1981. 81 was a good year. Now, how did you then? Did you get? I'm assuming you got all your information from Evansville. You still got to see back then all the Channel 4 feeds of what was going on high school wise and the coverage they had. Did you get to see it down there?
We did. We had the feeds in Evansville, but it was always the effort to go watch these two because Robert Stadium, I know, was a phenomenal place. And I can still remember walking into that stadium, and it was filled to the top. You got through the morning games, and then you walked in the facility, and the Evansville Courier and Press had the paper there for you that talked about the game, and then you stayed there that night. But we got Hilliard Yates was on the old television in Southern Indiana also at the time.
Loved Hilliard Yates. There's so many great voices, so many great names. I mean, you think about Hilliard. Obviously Jerry Baker, what he has meant. You think about Tom Carnegie as well, all these legendary voices. And I love going back on YouTube Live and just kind of searching some of these older games and things that are on there as well. And I mean, it stirs the echoes, but you think about it right now, and, we got John Herrick on, we got Greg Rakestraw on as well doing stuff and, making moments for an entirely new generation, and it just keeps on going and seemingly gets better and better.
It does. And again, it just what Rick does and John and Mark Janes and those guys are just phenomenal. Again, they're fans first.
Yeah.
They're so knowledgeable of the game, so they bring it to our fans who are listening or watching on TV. And they make it real for them. And, Rake is just a walking encyclopedia.
Oh, my gosh.
High school athletics,
I'm telling you.
And, it keeps getting better. I mean, you look here today. There's a lot of things people could be doing on a Friday night here in especially this Indianapolis area, but they're here. They're here to watch high school baseball.
Now, you live up here now, right?
Well, I go back and forth.
Okay, well, tell me a little bit about now. What do you call home when you go
home
back?
Is still Evansville, Indiana.
Okay,
I live on the north side of town. But I still get out to Poseyville where I grew up.
Why not?
And got a few things going on in that old town with my brother and trying to get back a little bit. But it's still home. And last weekend I got to watch the North Posey Vikings win a state championship.
Yeah. Softball.
That's softball. As commissioner, I've got to sit there and I got to sit on my hands and I have to cheer silently inside. Yeah. But the head coach in North Posey I grew up with. We played high school basketball together. He was in my brother's class. His dad coached me for 2 years in high school. And one person after another, and it's just visiting the guy I picked up hay for. Wayne T. Wiggins was in the stands watching the high school team play, and I got to talk to Wayne T. And really, when I see those folks again, it's just so important for me because it's such an important part of my life. To grow up in those communities, but then when I get to see the folks that allowed me to grow up in those communities.
Isaac Vanderwood, who just got an off-the-wall one-hopper right in front of the 362 sign out to right center field, which was a stand-up double. That was an absolute rocket right there off of his bat. I mean, that thing was a laser that had no hump in it whatsoever. I mean, had that thing had a hump in it, who knows what it might have happened. It might have given him air enough to get it out of here, but a one-hopper on the warning track right in front of 362 on the wall. That is a knock right there, Commish.
That is. It is. You can tell this young man probably spent a few hours in the pen.
Maybe so.
Swinging out some balls.
Maybe so. All right, as we end the sports calendar year, what are some of the things, as the commissioner, as Paul Niding joins us, some of the things that you and everybody will have to take care of meetings-wise? I know there's some situations in class athletics that are coming up, decision-making-wise. What are we looking forward to here?
Well, we're going to leave here this weekend when we're done, and we're actually going to go spend a couple days with our board of directors. Mm-hmm. And, during the school year, when they're busy with their school, there's just not a lot of time to talk in depth about topics. And so we're going to spend 2 days talking about high school athletics. Yeah. And we're going to take the time to talk about an education-based system. And, we spend a lot of time talking about keeping education in front of athletics. And, we see what's going on in the NCAA now, and certainly they've got their thing, and we certainly support what they do, but it doesn't work for us. And so we're going to spend time talking about that. And a big vote next week. We're going to talk about the class system and how we divide our schools up. We've been in a 4-class system since 1997.
Right.
But schools have changed.
Wait, what's the criteria? What's the criteria surrounding what you guys are going to vote on?
Well, currently we divide let's just boys basketball is the first focus for most.
Yeah.
And we take the number of teams in the state of Indiana playing that sport, and we divide it equally. That's where we're at right now. Well, the proposal that's before them is to kind of skew that a little bit. So we would set, let's say, 1,400 would be the bottom of 4A.
Yeah.
And so 1,400 up to Carmel, which is just over 5,000, would be 4A, which is still a huge gap.
Yeah.
Which means then there were some teams that are in the bottom of 4A would come to 3, and that would go all the way down the map. But the other thing that's happened is schools that are traditionally 1A schools with the onset of charter schools and small private schools have pushed traditional 1A schools up into 2A.
Right.
And so we're also trying to address that a little bit too. And schools haven't grown in enrollment, but yet they're becoming a class higher than they were before. And it's a tough decision. Every school looks at it from their lens and who's going to be in their sectional. And it is important. But at the end of the day, I remind them all the time, we have to remember, after the first round of the tournament, no matter how many different levels we have, half the teams are going home with a loss. and we're going to play it out from there. And what we do, the most important thing happens every day in the gym with a coach after school.
Is Paul Neidig's the commissioner of the IHSAA? Is it across the board now? Because, we're so far down the line, I rarely, if ever, bring it back up. But do we have as close to complete satisfaction with the class system in athletics and especially basketball here as we've seen it? Or are there still some kicking and screaming regarding that?
There'll always be that, and I'm okay with that. Because that just tells me people still care about the product that we have. If they didn't care anymore, they wouldn't talk about it. And there's nothing wrong with remember when, or can we do it this way? We didn't. If we just stayed the same, we wouldn't have made the change between the semi-state and the regional this year.
Right.
Where we went from a 2-game regional to a 2-game semi-state. We saw our crowds unbelievable as they followed their team through the tournament a little further.
What was the thought process behind that too?
I thought that sectional week is a tough week. It's a 3-game week. It's tough. Then we wanted to give our teams a chance to get prepared for one game. So you get through that 3-game sectional week, you got to get ready for one.
Yeah.
And then the challenge, you ought to have to bring it the weekend before you get to go play in a state championship.
Right.
And so we just thought we're going to get them a chance to get their breath, get their legs under them, one game, and then you better be ready because you're going to have to play 2 to go play in the state finals.
Well, and I remember talking to Greg Rakestraw about that. And was that kicking and screaming?
Honestly, it really wasn't. I think we had support for the most part, and evaluation after we've done that. Very little consternation from our membership or from people. From my perspective, and sometimes I'm like, Dad, I'm the last one to know, but I think the fans enjoyed it.
So Paul Neidig, again, he's the commissioner of the IHSAA. Most commonly asked question that you get regarding sports in general that you oversee right here?
Today it's are you going to permit NIL for these kids? That's one that we get quite a bit.
Right.
And I think once you explain our position to it, we got kids that haven't earned a degree in life yet. And when we take anything that takes the focus away from a high school diploma and puts I love these kids, but they're still maturing. They're not prepared to deal with all the things that go along with things like NIL. And so we get those questions a lot. A lot of questions we get is, how come my team has to go play this team? Or,
right.
It's individuals from local communities. And I get it. Again, it's just passion asking a question, and we'll take those every day in our office.
Yeah, I did not even know that NIL at the high school level was much of a question. Is that more significant than I ever thought?
It's becoming that way. But I will tell you, I get a lot of calls in my office on NIL, and it's not from student athletes or their parents. It's from adults wanting to make money off of these.
Oh, that's what it is?
That's what it is. And it's agents, it's people that are in that middle part of that thing that are going to make some money if they can get this into this part of it, and that's just not what we do.
That's incredible right there. I guess it would stand to reason because you get trickle down in everything in athletics. So that's just not something that I had certainly thought about in this case. All right, so board of directors meeting coming up. Besides what we've talked about so far, what else is on that agenda?
The other thing that's on that agenda, we have some new member schools that we're going to be considered that have made application that start the process. We're also going to look at the success factor that we have, and that's certainly some folks like that, but if you have a certain amount of success within a tournament, then you move up. And so we're looking at a different proposal with that member schools can make. And the cool thing about all that is any member school of ours, 407 of them, can make a bylaw proposal that's considered by our board, and that's what we're going to be looking at with those.
There's an interesting, and I don't think you guys got involved with it at all, and it's probably not even your domain. I'm not sure that's why I ask you, though, but the whole Carmel Senate Grove thing. What was your stance on that? And again, I want to refresh everybody's memory that's listening right now. There was some stuff that kind of led to Carmel. Center Grove and Carmel were outside of a conference, and some things led up to Carmel, basically dropping Center Grove from their sports calendar schedule, which, I look at it like this, and if there are two teams in this state that need to be playing in absolutely everything, it would be those two schools. Where were you guys when this was going down? Your thoughts? Did you get involved whatsoever?
Yeah, I do have some ability to. First of all, it's a contractual relationship, just like any other contract a business would have, or we have for jobs or anything else. So there's a contract to play between Center Grove and Carmel, and there's terms of those contracts, and they've agreed to follow those terms, and so that's outside of me. Now, I do have some authority to step in certain special circumstances, but I didn't. My wish is like everybody else's. Those two teams need to be playing each other. That's been my stance all the time. I've told both schools that from the beginning, but in the end of the day, if they follow the terms of the contract and decide not to play regular season, I don't have a lot of authority there to force the play, But
what was your opinion on all that, though? What was your thought?
I really thought those two, and I told both schools this. I felt that as two leading schools athletically with significant success across this state, I told them that I wanted them to get in the room, and I actually sat with them and said, we surely can figure this out. And that was my stance. It's been my stance from the beginning. It's still my stance today. And I still think if they would sit down with each other, they could figure this out along the way. But if they can't, they'll follow the terms of the contract, and hopefully in the future they'll be able to work this out. But again, my belief is they need to play each other, just like yours.
Is that a common occurrence? Is it becoming more of a common occurrence, a situation like that?
It's becoming more when we have conference realignment.
Yeah.
And this year we had conference realignment, but sometimes conference has agreements that govern how conferences are broken up.
Right.
And they mention those things. But again, those are handled outside of us. But yeah, it is. We've had more conference movement this year across the state than I've seen in my time around here, and hopefully it'll settle down next year once we've had all this movement. But
how many teams would you estimate were on the move as far as conference?
I think
changing affiliation.
Yeah, I know of at least 9 conferences that had moves this year
now,
across the state.
They could just do that without.
Yep, that's not us. That's an agreement that they have with the schools in their area, but it's happened for years. I mean, the old Southern Indiana Athletic Conference had 12 teams with Terre Haute and both in them. And there's always – schools evolve. They come and travel's different, and the way the community looks is different. And so they do realign over time.
Well, then I think you used to have some teams or some schools were in 2 different conferences then, right?
There were some that had a football conference.
Right.
And then they may have a conference for everything else. Tecumseh years ago down south had a conference they played in for football, but then everything else they played was a different conference.
So Paul Neidig, who is the commissioner of the IHSAA, who joins us in the final couple of minutes we have, the one thing that I gather, actually I hear the music right here, but just really quickly, Paul, the growth of what we see out here in baseball right now and that of football. We know we love basketball, but the growth of these other sports in this last 20 seconds or so has been amazing.
It has. We've seen, and across the board, we have national ranked swimmers, nationally ranked volleyball players. We have kids that are being recruited at a high level across this country in multiple sports. And again, that's just a tribute to our coaches and our schools in the state of Indiana, and that's why I don't want to screw this up along the way.
That's Paul Neidig, the commissioner of the IHSAA. Thanks for hanging with me, man. Appreciate that. Thanks for inviting us out to Covenant Christian, Ileana Christian, joined in progress following the last word. That's Matt Taylor and Casey Valier coming up here at the bottom of the hour. My thanks to everybody that had us here. James, I am off Monday and Tuesday. I am on tomorrow night during the JMV Takeover on B1057, 6 until midnight. Have a great weekend. Keep it locked at 93.5 and 107.5 The Fan.